We got a big agenda tonight and a lot of people here, which is fantastic. So let's get the meeting started. We'll start with council member introductions, starting on my left.
Dave Olson.
Dan Haggerty.
Lisa Ketchum.
Claire Couton.
Laura Stein.
Chris Johnson, and I am the chair of the MCC. And let's get going here. We're going to have so I just want to make a quick early announcement. We have a lot of people here, and I think a lot of people here are here to make public comment on a couple different hot topics, which is great. Some people may groan, but I would love to see this many people here for public comment at every meeting. Seriously, this is what local involvement is all about. So I'm thrilled to have this many people here. I need to let people know that the main item on our agenda tonight is a very complex and complicated one. The last time we had this item on the agenda, this item alone took over 2 hours. So given that, and that we have an additional item that is somewhat related, what I'm going to do for public comment is I'm going to limit it to 2 minutes, and I'm going to let public comment run until 7:30, which is the time that Rob Bartoli's presentation is scheduled for. Whatever people would like to still make public comment, we are going to make that time available, but we're going to move it to the end of the agenda so that we can get through the 2 scheduled agenda items. Again, I'm not trying to dampen anybody's public comment. I want to hear every single person that wants to speak, but we've got to get to this very important agenda item, which is a comprehensive transportation management plan for traffic mitigation of congestion for the entire coast. So I think you can understand that's a pretty important topic and also a pretty complicated one. So let's get started right away. We've got Ellie Dahlman here from Supervisor Horsley's office. She's going to give us an update from the Board of Supervisors.
Great. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, as Chris mentioned, my name is Ellie Dahlman, and I'm the newest member of Office of Supervisor Horsley. I have a few updates this evening. Thank you to everyone who attended the last MCC meeting where we held a public hearing on the draft vacation rental ordinance. A second public hearing will be happening in Pescadero, co-sponsored with PMAC, for those of you that didn't have a chance to attend. It'll be happening in late April, and I'll be sure to provide meeting details. We're still just confirming the location and date, but contact me if you're interested, and I'd be happy to send that to you. Comments and suggestions from both public hearings will be considered as the ordinance is finalized. So it is posted up on the MCC website. So anyone that didn't have a chance to be there in person, feel free to send your comments to me by email. In addition, the multimodal trail, we expect to receive an update on the 30% design and the necessary environmental documents by early April. So we are moving along on that. The next step will be to put out an RFP to go ahead and move forward through to 100% design. And then the next step would, of course, be implementation. But we'll keep you informed as we have additional information on that project. And then the last thing just wanted to mention is we are aware of the erosion that is occurring along the coast, and specifically for Marauder Road, DPW is working on a plan for additional reinforcement at that location. So we're aware of it and working on it. That's all.
Does the council have any questions for Ellie on any of these topics? Great. Dave?
One very quick one.
Yes.
So it looks like work has started to move the coastal trail inland right at the RV park. Was there an additional coastal development permit for that?
For which?
The coastal trail just south of the RV park, which is north of Surfers Beach.
And that would be separate than the
Well, it should be a separate project.
Yeah.
And they've already removed part of the embankment, so I'm assuming they have a CDP.
Okay. That's something that I can follow up on. I haven't heard anything about it.
Great, yeah, if you could check on that, Ellie, because that was told to us to be outside of the current project area that's being worked on now. We were wondering when it would be addressed, and yeah, I was just out there yesterday, and they had a bulldozer out there moving stuff around. So something's happening there, and it'd be nice to know what.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
check into it
Cool.
for you.
Cool. Okay, we're going to get right into public comment. So again, if you would like to make a comment right now on a topic that is not specifically on the agenda, please fill out a speaker slip. Yeah, please fill out a speaker slip and we'll go. First speaker slip I have is Steve McGrath.
Were you doing council announcements then on the public comment?
Steve filled out a public speaker slip, so I'm just going to go with that.
Oh,
Thanks, Steve.
clarify the process for next time.
That's okay.
Well, Well, thanks very much. Yeah, I'm Steve McGraw. I'm the General Manager for the San Mateo County Harbor District. Just here to give you a very brief, because I want to be brief, because obviously you've got a lot of stuff to get through this evening. And the first thing I do want to convey is some news that we received today, that the long-awaited opening of the crab season has been delayed again. It was scheduled to open there on Saturday. They were going to be allowed to drop pots on Friday. There is some concern about the nature and quality of the crab that's down there, and so we're not expecting now to be able to drop pots until Monday. Obviously, the disappointment in the harbor and throughout the community is going to be great on that. It's been exciting the last couple of days as people have been building up to start fishing, and seeing that hustle and bustle on the pier has been just a great thing, and so it's very disappointing to get that news, but hopefully we'll be back on track on Monday. And the second thing, and I'll only talk about this because of your packed agenda tonight, we have started preparing our 2016-17 budget, and we're making great progress. There are a couple of things that those who are interested in these things will find interesting when we finalize it. We are teasing apart the two sides of the public and the enterprise functions, so that eventually when we're all done, you'll be able to see just where all the revenue comes from and where the revenue goes, and whether it's an enterprise function or a public or general fund function. Secondly, we've developed a first draft of a 5-year capital improvements program. It's extremely aggressive, especially in the first year, the 16-17 year. I did try to create a program that was going to be achievable, but only with some considerable work. We can only do this because the finances of the district are sound and solid. We're looking at a good year. We've had a good year, and we have healthy reserves. And in total, we're looking at a capital improvements budget for the year of a little north of $3 million, with a lot of that going to issues and things around Pillar Point Harbor. I'll highlight just a couple of them. The demolition of the Romeo Pier. Some paving maintenance and replacement throughout the harbor. Starting to plan for some significant dredging operations. Let's see, what else have we got here? A bunch of dock fingers. We've already got permits for dock fingers. We're going to be replacing a bunch of dock fingers. We're going to start off with an RFP for professional services to do a complete survey of all of the district's properties from an accessibility perspective and compliance with ADA, so that we can then come up with a complete plan for identifying and remedying those issues where we're deficient or need to make improvements. The list is long. Like I said, we've got about $3.5 million, approaching $4 million worth of programs scheduled for the year. My hope is that we'll be able to get all, if not, I hope most of them accomplished, and that Pillar Point in particular will look better and work better at the end of this coming fiscal year than it does today. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
We're not going to have questions right now, Steve, but I really appreciate that update. That was all, except for the crab, which I'm hoping Monday,
right,
it'll be better, but that's some really good news.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Okay. Next up, speaking of Harbor, Sabrina Brennan.
Thank you. I'm Sabrina Brennan. I'm a Harbor Commissioner, but I'm speaking today as a local resident. I live in Moss Beach. And to follow up on Steve's comments about crab season being delayed, obviously recreational season has already been open. Commercial now is being delayed another week. I want to remind everybody that the problems with the fishery have affected some of the local businesses, not just the fishermen. While the fishermen have been struggling, so have our local restaurants that are at Pillar Point Harbor and some of the other businesses at Pillar Point Harbor. So if you have an opportunity and you're going out to breakfast or you're having lunch or dinner and you're trying to figure out what restaurant to go to, please think about patronizing the businesses at Pillar Point Harbor. It would really help out our local business owners, our small business owners. So thanks for that. Also wanted to mention that there is a petition on the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, one of the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve Facebook pages, to hopefully convince the county not to install billboards on Highway 280, 92, and 101. And I believe that petition, where it originated with the Committee for Green Foothills, so you can also find it on their website. Then also wanted to mention that Tom Steyer, who is a huge supporter of the environment, is going to be a guest speaker at the May 17th Coastside Democrats event. And the venue has not been selected yet, so that's to be decided, but it definitely is going to happen on May 17th. And if you want to find out more, you can go to coastsidedemocrats.org, or you can go to the Coastside Democrats Facebook page. And thank you, Dan, for organizing that. And with that, I'll sit down. Thanks.
Thank you, Sabrina. John McKeon.
As you already know, my name is John McKeon. I'm a resident of Moss Beach, and I represent the Half Moon Bay Pilots Association, and we'd like to be on the record as opposing the Mid-Penn proposed development. We consider it neither prudent or in the best interest of the local community to place this development directly under, I might point out, the traffic patterns for runway 12 and 30 at the Half Moon Bay Airport. We presently have a hotline for comments on noise, and we receive anywhere from 2 to 3 per week. With over 100 new residents there, we don't think it's a very good idea, and I think it shows very poor oversight on their part to even think of placing this. We'd also like them, if they do go through with this and actually start selling these things, I think they're required by law to place a notice on each of those proposed sales that they are under a direct traffic pattern at the airport. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Excuse me,
Yes.
there were so many people in the back. Can everybody speak up a little louder, because we can't hear a thing back there?
Thanks, Marcia.
You're welcome to come in and stand against the wall. There's the windows.
If anybody is
Whoever
down
can
the
fit.
hallway, we have some room here in the back. You can certainly stand behind us here. Anywhere you can find room, please come in. And yes, anybody who's coming to speak, these are not amplified microphones. They're just connected to the video recording. So if you could try to raise your voice as much as possible. I understand it's tough. Marcia, thank you for letting us know about that. And next up, I have Mark Verlander. Can come all the way back here in the opera box seats back here.
I may have longer than 2 minutes, Chris. I would prefer that I go after the meeting.
After the meeting, any way you can cut it to 2, Mark?
I'll try my best.
Okay, do your best.
Okay.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Hi, my name is Mark Verlander. I'm a Coastside father and organizer of Let's Make a Park. And several weeks ago, without any warning or input from the community, Mid-Penn Housing announced its plans to develop multi-unit affordable housing on historic Point Montera land. Up to 148 units are allowed by current zoning. This is ill-conceived, backdoor plan is met with overwhelming community opposition. Tonight, however, our community is submitting a new plan for Point Montera, Make It a Park. After being allowed only a few days to gather signatures, nearly 500 people have signed our petition asking San Mateo County Supervisor Don Horsley to work with us to acquire the 11-acre Point Montera lands at 1 Sierra. Point Montera is a very special location on our coast side. It has historic significance as a former naval base and Coast Guard outpost, has unique geographical location and its own microclimate. It's home to our beloved Montera Lighthouse and internationally renowned Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, which, by the way, was preserved by the community petitioning the County Board of Supervisors in the 1960s. Preserving Point Montera Park has the potential to create a historic destination as important as a Presidio and SF or Point Lobos in Monterey. It's an ideal legacy project for the county to showcase its values by preserving the natural beauty of our coastside and community and visitors. This property's current zoning allowance is outdated based on 280 bypass development plans that were abandoned decades ago. The existing zoning no longer fits the realities of our small coastal communities that have since replaced the old 280 urban plans. As citizens of the community, we've come together to let Mid-Penn, MCC, and the county know that our remaining lands with historic and natural importance must be preserved before they are gone forever. I'd just like to say that we're also demanding that the MCC serve its bylaws as presented on their website. There's 4. And I'd just like to say, please,
Go, Mark.
please, the residents of our coast side have overwhelmingly voiced their opinion. We do not want a multi-unit medium-density project in the area and will not meet the goals of its residents and improve quality of life. So please work together with us to keep it that way. And please visit letsmakeapark.com and sign the petition. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you. Ann Rothman.
I'm also a resident of Moss Beach, and I agree that we need a community park at the Moss Beach site. There is not a single location on the coast dedicated to the use of our children to play sports, and particularly I am very interested in the AYSO. My daughter is playing soccer with them. They currently have to use the fields at the Half Moon Bay High School. And I just received an email, and I want to first thank those at the Half Moon Bay High School for allowing us there, or we would have nowhere for our children to play. And I just wanted to quickly read an email, though, about a problem that has arisen using the field. And this says, "Dear AYSO families and coaches, please understand that the AYSO is a guest at Half Moon Bay High School. We have been issued a permit to use the field only if our practices do not interfere with the high school athletic programs, namely track and field. Unfortunately, the high school athletic director has gotten complaints from coaches, high school athletes, and parents this last week that the AYSO members have been getting in the way of the high school athletes' practices. If this continues, we may lose our permit and no longer be allowed to practice at the field. This would be a disaster for our spring season. The high school has been very generous to allow the shared use of our facility. We believe this can work, but we'll need every AYSO member to do their part. AYSO is committed to working with other community organizations to support all young athletes and be good neighbors. Thank you in advance for your support." Obviously, this is not an ideal situation for the children, not at the high school and not for the AY students who want to play soccer. This would be an ideal location to put in a soccer field for the children. This is a need of the entire coast, not a handful of people, but everybody. And the AYSO is a complete volunteer organization. These are parents who come and give their time so that our children have somewhere to play, have an outlet, have something to do, and something very positive. This could be life-altering for a lot of children. Please give them a chance, and please give them this park.
Thank you, Ann. John Patino.
Thank you, Midcoast Community Council, for this opportunity. My name is John Patino, and I'd like to make a public statement on behalf of Resist Density. On behalf of the hundreds of residents who support this movement, some who are here tonight, and for those who cannot be here, we have come together as a community to voice our concerns. We say no to the ill-conceived housing project being proposed by Mid-Penn for Moss Beach and Montara, which is isolated from community-oriented services such as grocery stores, schools, banks, libraries, and health clinics. We say no to adding a large housing development in a location with no walkability or adequate transit. We say no to even worse traffic on Highway 1 and decreased accessibility to the coast. We say no to widening and altering our neighborhood roads, which diminishes the character of our communities. We say no to more pressure and pollution on sensitive habitats of the residing wildlife. And we say no to demolishing our historic public park land that we have enjoyed for decades. To the representative of Midcoast Community Council, we want your support. We urge you to honor our wishes and our voice. The Sierra Club, Loma Prieta chapter states, there could hardly be a much worse location for affordable housing in the urbanized Midcoast. Hundreds of people have already expressed their desire to keep this parkland that we have used for generations. Please visit letsmakeapark.com for this alternative vision. And please say yes to helping us find a solution to protect our beautiful coastal environment so local residents and visitors can all enjoy it. Please say yes to representing our concerns. And please say yes to advocating to Supervisor Horsley for what residents here want and need, not just for what the county is pushing. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention and your time.
So, one, I want to say I really appreciate everybody that's come here and also everybody's willingness to be respectful and patient and listen and whatnot. The good news is we still have 5 minutes till 7:30. If somebody else would like to make a comment, I'm holding public comment open for 5 more minutes. So please fill out a speaker slip and come on up. Leonard Warren.
I live in El Granada. I'm not familiar with that area, and I think that the bigger issue is there's already too many people on the coast side with existing infill development. There's going to be way too many people on the coast side. The first agenda item you have on the regular agenda says that it's to facilitate growth, and I'll have more comments on that on the agenda item. But there's no location on the Midcoast that's appropriate to add a substantial number of new houses.
Thank you, Leonard. Anybody else? One sec, Dan, 1 sec. Anybody else? Got 4 minutes. I know a lot of people came here tonight.
Just state your name when you come up. Just state your name clearly, please, for the record.
Frank Ruggiero, Montera. The reasons why the Mid-Penn development is horrible have been articulated by everyone a lot better than I can. So I just wanted to bring up one minor, maybe even pissy issue that I personally have living in Montera. If you live in Montera, you know that the Highway 1 is a parking lot on weekends or any nice day. If they have this development, there will be a stoplight at 16th Street, which will jam up the highway even more. People refer to this as more traffic. More practically, you can't get onto the highway if you live in Montera. There are only 3 or 4 exit roads to get on there. You will not be able to turn onto Highway 1. This will affect businesses in Princeton. It will affect businesses in Half Moon Bay if you happen to own one. You'll see a lot fewer Montera people on weekends. I would submit it'll be worse for people in Montera than those in Moss Beach who will be south of the light. Or north of the light, you're just stuck with the weekend traffic. So don't do this. What are you thinking? Don't do this.
Okay, I do not see any other hands or speaker slips, so Dan?
I'm Dan Haggerty, resident of El Granada. Everybody knows that our beautiful highway has extreme geographic limitations. We all know that each year more and more traffic as visitors are coming to enjoy our beautiful, and then rightly so. This is a beautiful space, and it shouldn't be just for the people that live here. It should be open to everybody. So I argue that any irresponsible development as being proposed, it will just make the beautiful area less accessible to the visitors that want to come. So I think it's a regional, it's greater than a regional issue. If they build these buildings, these units, they'll never go back. Once these cars come into these units, they'll never go away. Everybody knows that most of us that live here, we're pretty much prisoners in our own homes on the weekend. It's just getting worse. We've been, safety issues are a real hard a question here. We know about the 4-hour closure. Was it a couple weeks ago? We know that these things are going to continue to happen. So the answer is not to add more cars crossing in this dangerous intersection. So that's all I have to say. I think that we should find other ways. I know that the other side of the hill, there's plenty of large developments that are going on, and are these all being added up to the whatever number the state wants the whole region to have increased housing? We all know that there's a housing problem, but I think if you polled the region, they would not want to make this area less accessible. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to close public comment period. Now, I realize that a lot of people came for the public comment to speak about the property on Carlos Street. However, I would just make a plea to everybody here that one of the, a couple of the major concerns I hear about that potential project is congestion and infrastructure. And these next two items on the agenda are especially this first agenda item is trying to deal with that. Now, your perspective on it may differ, but it is in the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts with what's going to be happening with traffic and congestion and development in the future. So I would just make a plea to you that if you're interested in these topics, that you stick around for these agenda items. However, I know that a lot of people have dinner and families and stuff, so I would like to say if you're not going to stick around, I'm going to give a minute for people to kind of get up and walk out so that we're not talking over Rob's presentation. But I would again encourage you to stay, because this is the nuts and bolts that you hear about later in the Half Moon Bay Review. Like, what? Why did they make that? Where did this come from? This is where these things come from, is agenda items like this. Yes?
This will be available on the website?
Yes, all MCC, every single minute of every single MCC meeting is recorded by Pacific Coast Television, and I think it takes about, what, Steve, about 2 days before it gets up on their website. You can go to Pacific Coast TV.
Oh, it's on our website.
And it's also on our website, along with the minutes of the meeting and all associated documents. So if you can't make it, if you can't stay, please watch the video.
One more thing. This is not a proposal, this is just a presentation, correct?
This is a presentation. They're going to have a formal county workshop on April 7th at the Yacht Club in Princeton, and then they'll be making their formal presentation of their document. This is kind of a preview look for some tweaking, for some comments. The MCC gets a preview look at it, and as residents who come to this meeting, you also get a preview look at it. So, I'm sorry, Lisa. Yeah. Yes, I am.
Usually we have council member announcements.
I got carried away.
This is a entirely different topic, but nevertheless, someone might be interested. There's a sea level rise forum in Pacifica tomorrow, March 24th at 6:30 p.m. at the Community Center, 540 Crespi. There'll be experts there to speak and Q&A, and this is focused on Pacifica, but they invite Midcoast residents as well. It's about what are we going to do? There's a post of it on our website. I just thought you might want to know.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so we're going to pause for a minute. Anybody who doesn't want to stick around, if you could please make your way out. And everybody who wants to stay, I'm sure there'll be some seats for you.
I owe you a coffee.
Oh, you're fine. No worries. We're all lucky I brought it. Well, I'm going to use theirs too, but I've never really looked at
I'll take the glass of water. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm going to be talking for a little bit. And that one.
Dan, we need to turn something on here.
I'll get it.
Thanks, Mark. Okay.
Dave?
Oh, I broke my arm at the end of January. We separated the ulna by half an inch. Didn't get it x-rayed for 6 weeks.
Oh, had surgery?
Had surgery on Friday, yeah.
It's
got a 4-inch screw in it. Yeah.
Okay.
How did you do it?
I was walking down the hallway and slipped and landed on my elbow. Don't live at home. That's where all the accidents happen.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Well,
Yeah,
get
thanks.
well.
Yeah, well, I'm off pain meds already, so I think it's going well. Yeah, that's recorded for posterity.
Chris, consent agenda?
We can do that later.
Just getting so excited about transportation management. So let's just quickly get through the consent agenda. We have the minutes for March 8th. Do I hear a motion from anybody on this?
I'll move to approve.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed, 7-6-0. And now?
So good evening, MCC members. My name is Rob Bartoli, and I am the project planner for Connect the Coast Side for San Mateo County. I was here in last October to give you an update on our progress on the Connect the Coast Side project, the congestion management project for the Midcoast. And I'd like to present a new update to the project as it stands now. I'll go briefly in the review of the agenda for this evening for this item. I'll touch briefly on the objectives and the schedules of the project. Task 3 is where we're really going to be focusing on. Task 3 is for Connect the Coast Side, is identification and evaluation of the recommendations for transportation and land use alternatives to address deficiencies in the Midcoast for transportation. We'll talk about our public stakeholder and outreach and recommendations on that, and then the next steps for the project. So to touch briefly on the project objectives and schedule for what we have done so far. As a quick overview for what the Connect to the Coast Side is it is the county plan that will ensure measures to ensure future residential and non-residential development can be supported by the transportation system and infrastructure on the Midcoast. Quickly reviewing our project objectives, we're looking at full build-out under our LCP for both Midcoast and Half Moon Bay, which is part of the study area. I'll touch on them in a minute. We're looking at the build-out that is under a current existing general plan and zoning and other regulations. We're looking at potential impacts of growth on traffic, mobility, and safety on the Highway 1 corridor especially. We're identifying and evaluating measures to minimize and mitigate impacts of growth, and we're developing a plan for funding and implementing the transportation improvements that are talked about in this plan. So just to clarify, there's lots of transportation projects that are going on the coast right now. There's Half Moon Bay that has a local coastal program and a general plan update. So to be very clear, that Connect the Coast Side is the county's, it's the county's plan for the congestion management for the Midcoast specifically. It's to meet the county's requirements for our local coastal program and is separate from the ongoing local coastal program and general plan updates that are going on in Half Moon Bay. The parts of Half Moon Bay that are included in this study are recommendations to Half Moon Bay. They don't have to adopt them. They can totally ignore them if they'd like to. But they see the value in having the study area there. Half Moon Bay is a very important partner in this, and they've been great to work with. There are many important things, especially if we would look at Highway 1 and 92. I don't think we can not look at that intersection and that connection there and look at traffic on the Midcoast. Overall, our project schedule, this was originally started back in November of 2014. Our next, as I had mentioned before, our next public workshop on this topic will be April 7th, 2016, at the Yacht Club at 7 o'clock, and I'll make that announcement again towards the end of this item. We are looking to have a draft plan that will come back to MCC for another review in October of 2016 before it goes to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. So getting into the actual recommendations that we have. So we have looked at build-out and constrained development forecast. The constrained development forecast was before you at the November meeting, and use it to understand the potential impacts on the transportation system within the Midcoast. And our recommendations out of that to minimize and mitigate the impacts is both transportation improvements and land use policies. And we'll start with the transportation improvements first. So also, as in the November update, we talked about looking at how we would define deficiencies and what those standards would be. So the current Midcoast intersections deficiency standard for unsignalized intersections that have a deficiency level of service, which is LOS, and meet a signal warrant, a signalized level of service worse than level D. So there are two intersections that we have identified in the Midcoast that under full build-out would meet that requirement. One at California Avenue and one at Cypress. And so the recommendation right now is to signalize both those intersections. Cypress currently is actually below level D and is right now deficient. Under California Ave, one of the things that we will be looking at from a safety perspective and just from a traffic flow perspective is the issue of Winky Way. It kind of serves as a fifth leg to that intersection that's there. So as part of the proposal we are looking at is to actually cut off access to Winky Way to the intersection of California. That's what the map on the right describes. The church there at the corner would still have access off of California. They have a driveway there existing. And then the traffic that would normally come off of Winky Way into that intersection would then be rerouted to Appledore Street, which would then not trip a requirement for any kind of signalization as well. It's from a safety perspective, from a level of line of sight issue that are there right now with Winky Way coming into that intersection. Our transportation analysis has deemed that we should close that off when we put the signal on.
So Rob, does that mean going up to Juliana?
That would mean, so if you're on Winky Way, you would come actually through Etheridge, is where you would enter off of Highway 1.
It would actually be Juliana and Valimar.
Oh, yeah, Valimar, yeah, Etheridge would be the cross street there, the name changes. Thank you. As part of the Cypress Avenue signalization, there will also then be coordination between California and Cypress Avenue for the lights. Both of those lights would then be triggered by demand. If there is a demand for left turns, we can get into specifics of that at a later date when those actual intersections come in, because the one important thing to keep in mind, I should have mentioned this before I launched into the topic, is this is not a design document. This is high level, these are where we're going to think about the improvements, but we're not at a level of detail where we're actually designing and implementing them. Those are going to come after this program really has been established, and now we have essentially a book to look through to say, yes, these are improvements that we should be making, and now we've identified funding sources, but that is at a later date, and that is not really in the scope of this particular project. Just for one instance, there was a lot of deficiencies within Half Moon Bay that we looked at. This is just one of them I decided to put in here as an example. This, I believe, is actually at Grandview as this picture. And right now, that intersection would actually require to be signalized under full build-out. However, if you split the right turn and left turns at the intersection, the signal warrant is no longer met. So that is one idea that we have instead of having to signalize every single intersection throughout the Midcoast area. Getting into roadway deficiencies, again, this is the standard that was adopted for the Connect the Coast side, is that we're looking at a delay index, and that was kind of how long does it actually take you to do during traffic or free flow. So we defined that our delay index of anything above 2 would be considered deficient. If it was above, we could go up, bring it up to 3 if there was a multimodal segment along that segment, a road segment there. So the road deficiencies under full build-out again, from First Street to Murata Road is deficient at all times, except for weekend and midday peak. Murata Road to State Route 92 is deficient at all times, and State Route 92 to Miramontes Point Road actually does not become deficient, and the combined segment, the length of segment Highway 1 would be deficient at all times as well. So that would be if you just did traffic improvements and we did not have a multimodal trail. So when we look at it from having that higher threshold than the delay index of 3, no areas actually in the Midcoast then become deficient under that definition. And we really look at it as the segments. The reason we did this kind of the delay index and have that multimodal trail is that we kind of know that Highway 1 is constrained, and it's very difficult to either expand the road and add another lane, and in order to do that, there's many hurdles and obstacles that we'd have to get over. So instead, having the option to create a multimodal trail or having a dedicated public transit lane or something of that ilk would acknowledge that there are difficulties in providing more transportation lanes, but also giving the visitors and residents and workers on the coast opportunities to take other paths of transportation. And we'll get further down the line in what we looked at for pedestrian and transit and bicycle access that we're looking at. But I think it is important to show why the multimodal trail or multimodal access along a segment would actually help improve that area. So again, looking at an example of roadway deficiencies that we found at Half Moon Bay is the Highway 1 and Highway 92 intersection there. There's a 2-segment, and we're looking at one of the things that we're looking at with Half Moon Bay is again coordination between those 3 lights and looking at how to possibly fix those mergers where 2 lanes go into one, both on north on Highway 1 and then same thing going east on 92. So in this document, the proposed improvements will address all roadway intersection deficiencies in the Midcoast and Half Moon Bay except the delay through downtown Half Moon Bay, which is a partial mitigation when we look at signal coordination there. Looking at other intersections improvements along Highway 1, one of the improvements that we looked at is adding a turn bay and acceleration lane at Graywell Cove. We're also looking at having a medium and northbound turn lane, acceleration lane at 16th, which right now it just has striping, but there's no pedestrian medium there. And then there's a couple intersections where there are that you enter on the Highway 1 where there are no stop signs at this time, so we would just be adding those to the side streets. Potentially, one thing that we have studied is a roundabout at State Route 92 and 35, so this would be going on the east side of Skyline up at the top of the hill. Still would be deficient, is deficient now under level of service, but it could be a potential improvement. So other roadway improvements that we're looking at is defined curved and shoulder for consistent cross sections along Highway 1.
It's very difficult for people to hear if somebody in the audience is talking. People want to talk, can you please?
Yeah, please step into the antechamber out there, but please give Rob the respect to. I know it's a lot of information, but.
And we'll all come back to it if you have questions.
Yeah. Please hold your questions to the end. Right. Here's my questions right here. Sorry, Ron. Here's my questions. So please hold them to the end. We'll get to them.
So we're also looking then at consolidation of access at Rocket Farms. Again, this is in Half Moon Bay, along with that defined curved and shoulder on Highway 1. Roadway improvements that we're also looking at is just, again, general traffic calming improvements along Main Street in Montera. And that picture actually cut out. I have my notes on here though.
San Carlos.
And Carlos Street in Moss Beach, thank you. Other potential improvements that we're looking at, again, along Highway 92, would be left turn lanes at major businesses along State Route 92. We're looking at potentially a climbing lane between the quarry and the existing climbing lanes, again, headed eastbound on 92, and then signage specifically saying trucks use right lane along the climbing lane areas. So again, general estimates for the deficiency projects, and I should make a note of what the difference is between deficiency and then what we have down here for the circulation and safety projects. Deficiency projects are projects that actually would improve a deficient segment or intersection under the definition in the Connect the Coast site. Circulation and safety projects would not necessarily address those deficiencies, but they would help improve general circulation and improve pedestrian and vehicle safety. So for deficiency projects, it's estimated at $13.6 million, and the additional cost for the circulation and safety projects is $12.3 million. And again, when we come back next time with the draft plan, we're going to try to figure out where those funding sources may potentially be. Moving into pedestrian deficiencies, along Highway 1, the standard that we have adopted is that segments along Highway 1 with potential for pedestrian demand with crossing opportunities every half mile. And we did an analysis of where that demand actually is. And that was talked about in November. So the potential pedestrian improvements, pedestrian countdown timers on signalized crosswalks, signal timing adjusted to meet 3.5 seconds, crossing speed requirements. We're looking at pedestrian refuges on wide crossings, and then an ADA compliant walking path along Highway 1 in Montara, Moss Beach, Miramar, and the downtown areas of Half Moon Bay, with 6 feet wide obstruction-free path and then pedestrian scale lighting. One of the ones we've looked at, there was a comment about 2nd Street to have a medium instead of just beacons. That would be a possibility, and we're more than happy to hear from other comments of the communities if they're interested in having specific mediums at intersections that they would like to see addressed. Virginia was another one that was their comments on, and based off our traffic analysis for the engineers, it would kind of be hard to place one due to the line of sight at Virginia. And they're also in full Buildout under that, there would be a signal at California, so that would be able to provide pedestrians a safe place to cross, excuse me. The next slide here, we identify where the red circles are kind of the areas where, in the next slide, we'll show you where there was demand, but there currently are no crossings. So there are quite a few areas where there's really no defined crossings in Montara, the southern part of Miramar, and then the northern part of Half Moon Bay. So again, using the metric of the additional crossings to bring it down to every half mile, those yellow dots would be the areas where we potentially have new crossings. And the next slide, this is in the city limits of Half Moon Bay, but again, just another example of potentially where they could have crossings. A crossing would be a defined place where a pedestrian can safely travel across. Normally, it would be an intersection, whether it has striping and then beacons, or striping and then some kind of pedestrian lights, or a striping and then a medium. But it would be at a very defined place where they could cross that. Under pedestrian circulation and safety, we're also looking at an ADA compliant walking path along Coronado and Avenue Alhambra in El Granada. This does meet Department of Public Works standards for walking paths in El Granada, and again, it would be a 6 foot wide free path and pedestrian scale lighting. Under bicycle improvements, deficiencies, again, the standard that we have, we talk about access right now, deficient score, and their bicycle environmental quality index, and then the storage that we've looked at. Potential bicycle improvements, would be making parallel trail continuous. Right now it runs at it would continue from 2nd Street to Russo Francois Avenue and Waycrest Road to southern Half Moon Bay border, and then also making coastal trail continuous from Devil's Slide to 2nd Street, and then California Avenue between Highway 1 and Airport. We are also looking at then the Class 2 bicycle lane in both directions along Highway 1 were feasible. And that the were feasible will get down into the design review documents when at that time. We're also potentially looking at a Class 2 bicycle lane along State right now, 92, the whole corridor, and a Class 2 or Class 3 bicycle route along Airport Street. And the key thing here is that we would do a demand study to see whether that would be worthwhile pursuing in there or not. So those are very conditional, but those were things that our consultants did look at. So again, the cost for deficiency projects to meet the requirements and our standards for pedestrian and bike is $26.2 million, and the additional cost for circulation and safety projects, the bulk of which is the bike path on Highway 92, is $22.8 million. Looking at transit deficiencies, utilization of the standard is utilization of buses standing capacity exceeding a 2-hour average of 85%. And then a bus stop with an average of at least 25 daily boardings without a bench for riders, and bus stops with an average of 100 without a shelter. So if you had 25 daily boardings, we would work with Samtrans to see if we can get a bench there. If you had at least 100 boardings, we would see if we can get a shelter. The transit improvements that were identified, the benches we installed at the following locations as seen on the PowerPoint, and all of those actually are in the city of Half Moon Bay. So there are no boardings right now on the unincorporated Midcoast that would require any kind of improvements, so no benches would be involved. One thing that we are looking at are other transit improvements, including shuttle bus service, which is the next agenda, I think, on the item on the agenda. We're trying to work with Samtrans for more frequent service on the weekends for both routes 294 and 17, and then park and ride shuttles through existing parking lots. And then one of the items that we did put in there as well is school bus service for El Cabrillo Unified. So under the transportation improvement costs, relatively low for deficiency projects, because again, those are really those benches in Half Moon Bay, and the additional cost for circulation and safety projects would be about $500,000 annually operating. It's a little bit tricky on the buses because we'd have to work out that with the school district. Regarding parking deficiencies, the standard was utilization of beach access or parking lot capacity exceeding 85% during the weekend midday peak. The improvements that we were proposing under parking deficiencies would be to formalize the parking for Montero State Beach with a physical separation from Highway 1. That picture actually is shown here, and then diagonally separated parking for El Granada. And again, tying into that as well would be a park and ride shuttle service for lots that are over 85%. Continuing the parking improvements, we'd be looking at diagonal parking along Carlos Street and Moss Beach, paving and striping the Graywell Cove upper lot, and then improved wayfinding signage. Potentially those costs for deficiency would be about $600,000 with a $250,000 annual operating budget, and the additional cost for the circulation and safety projects would be approximately $1.4 million. So that kind of briefly touches on the transportation improvements, and there's always been two parts of this. It's been the transportation and it's been the land use. And so we'll talk about some of the land use concepts that Midcoast has seen before, and there has been not too many changes to it, and really has just been refined.
Rob?
Yes.
One really quick question before we move on to land use. All of those costs are in 2016 dollars.
Correct. There are the engineer's estimates from 2016. It's a very good question. So getting into the land use policy concepts, The county currently has, there's a number of paper subdivisions that really have not been developed yet. So we have, in the county, for planning purposes, we have revised our legalization process for these paper subdivisions in response to a couple of court cases throughout the state. And so there's an estimated 183 parcels in the unincorporated Midcoast that would need to go through something called the Certificate of Compliance process. There also are a number of substandard lots. So these are lots that do not meet the minimum size or lot width requirements. Right now you can develop those lots, but it requires a use permit. So one of the land use policy concepts that we've been looking at has been the mandatory lot merger program. This was actually authorized by the Board of Supervisors in 2006. It would have merged at least 2 continuous parcels under the same ownership. At least one of the parcels would have to be undeveloped. Area, at least one of the parcels would be less than 4,500 square feet if you're in the R1 district or R3. And it would have to be less than 5,000 if you're in the Resource Management Coastal Zone, which is the RMCZ. There's a voucher program for development bonus or a fee reduction for voluntary mergers for the first year approximately. And then the process of hearing and appeals for mandatory mergers would occur after that. The lot merger program would be supported by our local coastal program existing policy 1.21, our lot consolidation. It does contemplate this kind of idea of the merger. It's assumed in our build-out calculation for Connect the Coast side. Under this build-out or under this lot merger program, potentially 216 lots would be eligible in the unincorporated Midcoast. And vacant substandard lots would be decreased by 40% approximately. Another land use policy concept that we've been looking at and has been recommended in this project has been the mandatory lot retirement program. So it would require a 1-to-1 retirement of development rights on existing lots in exchange for new lots. So the Coastal Commission has required this as a condition of approval for some recent projects, and was recommended actually in the Midcoast LCP update.
Could you just explain that that is when somebody subdivides?
Yeah, that's my next slide. So the proposed policy would be when someone is subdividing a lot and creating a new one, you would have to then take the development rights of one lot that's already existing and essentially extinguish them. So proposing, the donor sites would be located at the existing developed areas. They would be on more the rural fringes of the Midcoast, or areas containing sensitive habitat, or designated that have a general plan designation of conservation, open space, recreational, or agricultural. And again, as Lenny Roberts pointed out, apply only when residential subdivision is proposed. It does not apply to infill development, would be the concept. So the mandatory lot retirement program would follow the Coastal Commission recommendation. And it's estimated that 148 donor lots in the unincorporated Midcoast, assuming the lot merger program was also in effect. This will be kind of hard to see up there, but this is the merger slide. Those red specks are potential lots that could be merged, that are again that fall under the category of one of them is vacant and they are under common ownership.
Could I just make a comment? This is on our website, and on your computer you can expand that and actually see what these parcels are. This slide.
Yeah, and there's the whole PowerPoint's on there because there's a couple other slides that we have maps that will probably be difficult to see. And again, this is for the rural Midcoast. So this is the RMCZ properties that are mainly up in Montera. Another land use concept as part of this program is a traffic fee mitigation program. The traffic impact fee could help establish the recommended improvements that are in the Connect the Coast Side program. It would apply to new housing and commercial developments at a rate based proportionally on the need of new development, estimated at 30 to 40%. And while in and of itself, the fee itself is not a growth management strategy, but it could have the effect of lowering development by increasing fees. So regarding our outreach and next steps, I would encourage you, if you'd like to learn more about this program, this is our website, is connectthecoastside.com. We will have a workshop that will touch on these again, and we'll hopefully incorporate a lot of your comments here tonight. At April 7th at the Yacht Club at 7 p.m. You can go on our website and you can sign up for notifications, so when we send out press releases when the next meetings are, you'll get that email. Overall, our next steps are for public stakeholder outreach, like I have just defined. We would be presenting this preferred alternative first to the Planning Commission and then to the Board of Supervisors. I think Planning Commission will probably be in May sometime. Once we have that, we'll conduct our environmental review for the preferred alternative, and then we will have a draft congestion management plan, which again will come out probably in the fall, and then another round of outreach will occur, Half Moon Bay, Midcoast Community Council, another workshop, and then we'll go to Planning Commission to Board of Supervisors. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or hear any comments.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, that was, as you can see, there's a lot of information there, right? Okay. We're going to start with any clarifying questions and initial thoughts from the council if you have a comment you want to make. Dave.
Clarifying question on the one-for-one lot retirement. The idea being you own or buy a lot and want to build on it, you're required to buy the development rights on another vacant lot and retire them?
When you subdivide them.
Only when you
Only
subdivide.
when you subdivide. So if you were creating it, if the lot exists and you are currently, and it's in the middle of a block, and you want to develop that lot, you would not go through the lot retirement process. If you're looking to subdivide a lot, then the creation of that new lot, you would have to then go out and retire an old development rights on another lot.
Okay, so the related question is, and I know it's come up at many of these meetings, why was there no inclusion of a program to increase development fees to build up funds to buy lots to retire them?
I think the mechanisms for that are not in place yet. That could be something that we could look at. I don't know. That would be, we haven't done really that analysis, and we haven't really looked at that policy. We've looked at it really just from a development standpoint of having the lot retirement of creating a new lot and then taking, so it's a one-to-one against. So you're not creating new lots upon new lots. But right now, we are not looking at potentially buying either infill lots or either open space with any kind of developer fees. We'd be looking at for transportation improvements, but we would not be looking at to then go buy parcels.
Right, and my question was, why not? I know that you didn't, and I know it was suggested over and over again, and yes, I know it's breaking new ground for the county, but it's an obvious thing to do, given that we're already sort of overbuilt for our traffic infrastructure.
And that question might have been answered prior to me coming on, so I'll look into it, and I can get you an answer.
I don't think it's ever been answered. It's been.
This is the first time we've seen the land use stuff.
Yeah, we were told hold off because the land use is coming later.
Well, we talked about we touched on the land use back in November. That was part of this, under the concepts for the merger, and I think it was even touched on before, back in 2015, before I came on, when we essentially had the alternatives for the program. We heard, there was lots of changes going on. We were looking at then the alternative forecast with a shorter time. So we might have touched on the land use concepts back then as well. But I'd be more than happy to look into that question for you.
Okay. I had some other non-comments that are not clarifying questions, so if other people have clarifying questions, I think we ought to go on to them.
Lisa, 1 second. So again, if anybody has a question for Rob or a comment you want to make, how you feel about something that was presented, please fill out a speaker slip. Hold on, John. We're going to go through council first and give you guys a chance to fill out your speaker slip, bring them up here, and then after council goes through their clarifying questions, then we'll have questions from the public. Lisa?
So in the TAC version of this document, it was recommended to put a roundabout at Kehoe, and I see it's gone now. Why did the recommendation change?
So 2 things on that one. Again, Kehoe's within Half Moon Bay city limits.
So they didn't want it?
I'm sorry?
And they didn't want a roundabout?
No. So one of them was, if I recall correctly, one of it was that there was some engineering difficulties about putting a roundabout in place, and because it is a recommendation, the cost is more or less about the same. for a roundabout and for a signal at that intersection. So our consultant just, at the time, said it just made more sense to potentially have a signal there. But again, it's a recommendation to Half Moon Bay, they don't have to accept it.
It's, I mean, there is the aspect that roundabouts are much safer than, basically, the intersections where we have the most accidents in the Midcoast are the ones with the traffic signals. So roundabouts being safer, that's not considered, in this weighing the roundabout or the signal?
We're looking at safety, absolutely. And now, it also comes to some extent is whether it's feasible or not at those intersections to place a roundabout. And our consultant thought it was more feasible to put a signal there at that time.
Okay, got a couple more questions,
Mm-hmm.
at least a couple. So just to make sure I understand, the lot retirement program is applied for even if you just have one lot and you want to divide it into two, and you're in the middle of a neighborhood, you still have to retire a lot. Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes. For the creation of another lot would mean you would have to then retire to another one.
Tantalizing for us that we've seen these subdivisions coming in and being approved, with no lot retirement happening, and it's like, it's just frustrating to see this continue.
Now, one thing I would say is that, and I'll get my notes here to make sure I'm speaking on it correctly, is that one of the options potentially would be that you would pay essentially an in lieu fee towards a pot, and then we could then use that money to then buy that lot.
Yeah,
It may not be something that someone could actually go buy a lot every single time they develop one.
However, it
But that's
happens that
potentially up.
basically, currently, if you want to subdivide, there's no repercussions, you just get your subdivision.
There is no retirement process in place right now.
Okay, so now the lighthouse, I'm confused because, and there's been several iterations of this. In the safety mobility study, there was, as illustrated in this project now, left turn pocket, raised median. And then when we got to the crossings project, we were told, and then right after that, the Caltrans came in and put in the left turn pockets, but they didn't put in the raised median or the crossing. But the left turn pockets are there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then we had the crossings project, and we were told in order to get a raised median refuge island, to put that in there, that it would be this horrendous length of road and widening and all to fit the raised median in, and that it was hopeless, and so we said, well, okay, just do the painted crosswalk. And now, this plan is saying we're going to do what was in the safety mobility study. So I'm confused if you're aware of that history, or what we're really getting. Are you going to then so obviously it's simpler now that the middle lane is there. I'm just not, plus the cost estimate that was attached to this made me think this wasn't nothing really elaborate at all. So are you aware that project was already kind of done?
I am not aware of, what was the second program that you mentioned?
This is at the lighthouse?
No, I understand
Okay.
where it is. You said the safety mobility study, what was the next?
Crossing.
Well, the next thing that happened was Caltrans just did it without telling anybody.
Yeah, and again, it's a potential that we have it as an improvement in here when we actually figure out, what the design of that will look like and what that actually will truly cost once we get down to the design document level. We have a general estimate of what it would cost, but that's the idea, is to put that median in there.
It was on the order of a $10 million cost, because they would have to cut back into the
Was that from
embankment.
Caltrans, or who was?
That was from the traffic consultants.
Okay. That's something that I can look into, because I'm a little bit,
And the
that
residents
knowledge I don't
were not
have
happy about
on
that
that
idea.
background.
Yeah, the whole sequence of events was weird, and I
Okay.
still don't really know what's.
Because I saw your question on it, and that helps me give a little bit more background to what your question was on the lighthouse one.
Yeah,
So that's something I can look
there
into.
are left turn pockets there.
Yeah.
But we're really not happy with how it was done.
Mhm.
And we just didn't know what your intent was with this.
Our intent was to put that median in there as part of the
Put a
project.
median in.
Yeah, the
Wow.
pedestrian crossing. So I will look into the background on that one.
It does make your head spin when, you go through all these projects and you put your time in, you participate in everything, and then you're told, oh, no, that wasn't any good, you can't do that. And then, so anyway, that's the lighthouse. Then, okay, for Moss Beach, so there's been much talk about the need for widening because of the backup, like at the signal at Frenchman's Creek and whatnot. And so you're going to put these signals in Moss Beach, but there's no mention of widening the road for stacking lanes or whatever's needed to prevent the congestion caused by that. Has that been overlooked?
It's not been overlooked. We certainly looked at those at the intersections in Half Moon Bay about stacking and how we would figure out that queuing that would occur there and whether we would need to then widen at those intersections as well. I can get more detail from our engineers to see whether we have looked at potentially widening at those intersections. I don't believe we have.
But it's not mentioned in here.
Yeah, I don't believe we have, so I don't think.
Well, the only
The threshold is much higher, or the potential backup is much higher in Half Moon Bay than it actually is on the Midcoast, as you saw from those tables where we're looking at the delay index under full build-out. So the potential for the stacking issue may not arise. I'll look into that and I can check.
So, you mentioned tonight that this plan is going to provide a book to look through as we go forward. And, but see, we had thought that the Highway 1 Safety and Mobility Study was our book to refer to as we went forward. And so specifically with Moss Beach, the village there, this is an entirely different book. We had a concept for it. You know, it's a fairly small village with a lot of entrances, and the safety and mobility study had long-term a roundabout at each end of town, so that all these intersections you could just turn right, and there'd be this convenient U-turn not very far away, and there would be no traffic lights, and that the roundabouts would provide crossings, and then the space we already have in the middle. There could be a few median refuge islands for crossings, and so that is just flown, and then we're left, now we have these two signals plunked down. There's no discussion about what the repercussions are going to be with the streets coming in from the east side and all that, and the only thing it says in there is the two signals will be timed, which I don't really understand can happen because these are just sort of random times when people happen to want to walk across or into the road.
So I can discuss the roundabout issue slightly. In the safety and mobility study, it really was looking at the safety and mobility of pedestrians and of some traffic. But they did not actually do any kind of traffic analysis about how those roundabouts would function. And so this is what we really looked at here and said, when we look at the roundabouts, we still have deficiencies when we put them in there. We only solved the deficiencies through those traffic lights. So that's why there is some conflict between the two plans. I still think the safety mobility plan is still very good, but there are some things that we've looked at now that we've applied another level of analysis to it.
Well, I just wonder, okay, if what was in the mobility plan wasn't quite right, maybe some tweaking, maybe a different intersection for the roundabout, or some way to be able to, like I say, just everybody turn right onto the highway, and then a convenient U-turn someplace. Leonard's always talking about Michigan U-turn, but whatever, and we've got Carlos Street there, and it seems like there'd be something there, and then you wouldn't have these traffic lights. And it would take into consideration the whole village with a circulation plan for the village. And not just say, oh, these two intersections are problem, we'll fix that with a slap music.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that wasn't really a question.
After literally dozens of hours of hearing on that issue, to see none of it show up in this is very disconcerting.
Yes. So I'll stand down for a minute.
Dan.
So this draft is evaluation of recommended alternative to address potential future transportation deficiencies. But I don't see in here a study, or haven't heard any talk about a study of the cumulative impact on the overall flow that everybody's going to deal with. Once you start adding the traffic signals, you're going to encourage more pedestrian crossings, which will be a natural conflict in cars turning, and it's gonna add up. I'm not saying that, it's not good for pedestrians to be able to cross the road, not at all, but how we're going about it. So let me back up. A study on the cumulative impact of the overall flow, factoring in the increased at-grade pedestrian activity and the increased left turn turning into the Lemos Farm and Half Moon Bay Nursery. Once you put a left turn lane in, now you're gonna have more people making turns, more stopping, impacting the flow. So I think that it's very important that very soon, an overall study, how many cars are flowing on Highway 1 through 92 at the AM peak hour, the PM peak hour, the midday week, and the weekend peak hours. So that we can actually see what you're proposing to be, this alternative, and how it's really gonna impact us overall. So, is there a study been talked about?
So,
Impact study?
let me just make sure I understand what you're looking at, because again, the Connect the Coast side is really looking at if we have full build out on the Midcoast, how do we then deal with that demand of that full build out, right? So if every lot was developed in the Midcoast, we now have all these people here. What does that impact on the transportation system, and then how do we address those deficiencies that would then arise from them? So we have certainly looked at, we have a baseline of what we have existing conditions, and that's why I said, under current conditions, Cypress is technically a deficient intersection. And we have looked at State Route 92. Now, if you're talking about what are the impacts of potentially putting left turn lanes at certain places in 92, that would be in a design review doc, where we would be looking actually at implementing those programs and figuring out, where are those left turns needed, what are the potential impacts that placing those left turns would be at. So that kind of is down the road in that segment at least. If you want to know what the baseline conditions are right now, which is, I think, your question, if I understand it correct, just how many cars are traveling through Highway 1 and 92, I can get you that information. We have baseline data that we've taken this plan for. Because really what we're looking at now is deficiencies not under current conditions, but under the build-out, because that's what our local coastal program requires us to do. So we have the baseline data right now, but really we are looking at the future for what those future deficiencies are. But I can certainly get you that information about what the existing conditions are. I'm happy to do that.
And, we'll have another one. Later on, I'm going to ask you about the efficiency of, can we improve the efficiency of all this? And I'll just go in with pedestrian, either overgrade, above grade passes or below grade passes, which will completely eliminate the additional impacts of crossing and slowing down traffic and the likelihood of pedestrian collisions, pedestrian car collisions.
Are you asking a question now, or are you going to take a slide later?
I didn't see anything in here in regard to.
Well, I think last time in November, I know we had a conversation about tunnels. And we did have a somewhat of a conversation about overpasses as well. So again, we're still looking at just at-grade crossings and making them as safe as possible. And because the standard is every half mile. So you'd have to think about, if that's the standard for crossings, of some improvement at that range that's feasible. I know there's lots of costs that are here, and some of the numbers are quite big. But if you had a crossing or an underpass or an overpass every quarter mile, or half mile, excuse me, I think that would get very, very expensive. And I think there'd be some other impacts that we need to take a look at. So the most feasible one, from our estimation at least, is the half mile existing at-grade crossings, whether it's at some certain signalized intersections, or putting in a raised medium and a pedestrian refuge, or having beacons and lights.
We did have extensive discussions about beacons versus raised mediums.
And that's why I certainly encourage, if you have very passionate views on where those mediums should be, or whether it should be beacons, we're certainly here to hear that.
In that the data shows the refuge islands are safer.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, are you done for now?
I'll just add that, I've talked to a lot of people, and they'd be willing to walk a mile or a mile and a half for a perfectly safe crossing. So I think that the community would be better served at having fewer 100% safe crossings than many questionably safe crossings.
We're not at public comment yet, please. We're working on,
We will.
we're working on it. Dan?
That's it.
Okay. Claire?
This, it's a little overwhelming because I am wondering, first of all, I think your cost estimates are probably too low given the cost estimates that we had on other smaller projects, like at Cypress. That seemed, I don't remember what they said that was going to cost to restrike it or something. It was millions. Yeah, and to do this entire coast side thing for 12 million comparable work, it seems kind of low. But be that as it may, one of the things that I'm wondering if you've looked at all the speed limits, because I think they would be helpful if there was a uniform speed limit throughout the coast side. It goes up and down from like 35 to 55 and little pockets of increased and decreased speed. So you might want to look at that as some sort of uniform thing. I've got a lot of questions, but I think I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it right now. Just listen.
Okay, thank you, Claire. If you want to ask a question while the council still, please let me know. Laura?
I'm going to be brief. This was a letter that MCC sent, I think, last October. And I'm sorry for the audience. This slide that I'm speaking about is not in this particular presentation, but what the information was. Oh, great. Was the table that has constrained non-residential development forecast for the CTMP for 2040. And let's see. What we requested is the Midcoast non-residential development and jobs forecast. Although it's not an LCP requirement, it seems very unreliable without a market study, such as was done for Half Moon Bay. And so I think it's the jobs issue. So anyhow, if at some point you could get this information first, that would be great.
Okay. So you're asking for a market study, though, or what? Let me clarify
Well,
what you're asking
where the
for.
numbers came from, I think, is what the issue is.
I can get that information.
The data, yeah. Do you know which
Yes,
piece I'm talking
yes.
about here? Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, so I understand the public is ready to comment. A couple quick questions for you, Rob. Okay, that's more of a comment. Okay. Can you define pedestrian scale lighting for me, please?
I would probably say, not overhead lighting, something close to the ground, so that it's, again, we would have to look at a case-by-case basis of where it would go, but something more, again, just for walking purposes, so trying to fit in with the neighborhood. I know there's, that we would want to keep the rural nature of a lot of the walking paths. That's a concern the MCC has had. So something along those lines, I think, is what we look at as when we talk about pedestrian scale lighting.
Okay, related to that, slide 27, walking paths to be, you mentioned walking paths 6 feet wide. Are these paved sidewalks or gravel walking paths? This is an important thing because we have a rural, semi-rural community, a bunch of sidewalks. I'm not sure if people are up to that. So
I think it's much more of a walking path is what we're looking at. When we get to the El Granada one, the walking paths there, those might be paved. But again, that's there was a comment at the TAC about whether that would meet existing standards, and that would meet Department of Public Works standards for walking paths in El Granada.
Okay. Under roadway improvement, slide 22, quote, defined curb and shoulder for consistent cross-section. Does this mean the county's going to mitigate access to Highway 1 at El Gran Amigo and the Chevron station, where there's about 100 feet in each place of access on and off the highway? Because you specifically called out the Rocket Farms driveway in one of your slides, but no mention of that strip of the village in Moss Beach where there's huge just uncontrolled access to the highway for hundreds of feet at a time.
That we could definitely look at that to understand what those right-of-way uses are and where those entry points are. Again, when we get down to the further design doc to where we're actually going to place the curb and gutter, those would be certainly some things that we could look at.
Okay, so those are things that we've asked county to look at before, and when I see defined curb and shoulder for consistent cross-section, I'm thinking that this would be an excellent time for the county to actually move on those things that we've asked them about several times. So that's why I was wondering if that's what we were referring to there. Okay. And so transit deficiencies, slide 37. Not one single bench or shelter proposed for the Midcoast. 500,000 total for transit, where there's millions and millions for roadway development. I just don't. I don't see how we can be saying we're mitigating a traffic solution when we're putting not even $1 million into transit. How about, you know, funding an entire school bus service for CUSD? I mean, this is, I just 500,000 for transit when there's 20 million for asphalt.
And 18,000 for stop signs to get under at one.
So that seems way out of balance. And if we're talking about congestion, school buses, and more transit, I just, not one single bench or shelter proposed for the Midcoast, and we have these numbers if there's not 25 riders. I live on Vallejo Street, which is a wind tunnel. There's a bus stop on Alhambra at the end of Vallejo. Who's going to stand out there in a 20-mile-an-hour wind in the fog and the rain, freezing, waiting for a bus? I mean, if we want, I feel like we've got a chicken and the egg thing here. Samtrans, yeah, I know, but county can step up with some additional funding for lots of things on this, and we've got to have more money for transit. So I would say to Rob, I guess my question is, that's all for transit? And then the last, more rhetorical. And then the last rhetorical, so we can get on to public, is to follow up on Dan, and I know other people are tired of hearing this, but I just still don't get it. If I could please have someone explain to me how adding 14 new at-grade crossings between Half Moon Bay and Montera is either going to improve traffic flow or improve pedestrian safety. When we're not advocating 14 above grade or below grade crossings, but 2 or 3 in key places, as Dan said, I think would make a difference. But 14 at-grade crossings?
But when traffic is at standstill, it'll be safe.
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point. Let's just. Okay. So I appreciate. Dave.
Are you finished?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I did hold off my comments so the other people could get theirs. One of them was transportation needs serious subsidizing. It will help traffic way more than anything else that's been talked about, anything in here. And it's been said over and over and over again. We know Samtrans runs a deficit. We know that they're 90% subsidized, but all this money going into road and grade improvements and signals ought to be going into transit instead. And if the current state law or county law doesn't allow for that, let's work on getting it changed. We need the transit, not the roadway. Yes. Second, I had a comment on the curbs as well. I fail to see how the curbs will improve either safety or traffic throughput. We are rural. I see no need for any curbs. We've heard over and over again, residents don't want curbs. If you're going to try and put curbs in there, there better be a justification for it, not just toss it in. Oh, it's going to be more consistent. That's not what we are out here. We're highly varied, and we like it that way. Same thing with, oh, let's pave the coastal trail. There's a lot of people who like an unpaved coastal trail. That has nothing to do with the CTMP. Take it out.
Please, please.
All of these things that are going to divert from our main goals, which is the transit issues and the traffic issues, should
Trails.
be, yeah, anything like that should be pulled out of here. I understand the parallel trail because that encourages bike use, that cuts back on traffic. That's fine to be in here. But things like, oh, trails in the neighborhoods, that's not part of this. It shouldn't be part of this. So take it out. It's just one more thing to fight about. It's one more thing for somebody to latch onto and say, hey, that's easy, let's go do it. That's not what we want. We already have people upset about the sidewalks the DPW put in recently to meet the standards that none of the residents wanted. So don't give us an opportunity for more things like that. Focus on the goals of this, the LCP requirements, the traffic problems, don't get diverted, don't put things in allowed-diversion. And please go back and look at the other studies and all of the hearings, and don't put something in this that is completely inconsistent with the conclusions that we've reached on that, unless you've got a very strong basis for it. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Dave. And Claire?
I would make one comment on the elimination of access for Winky Way. Relative to what somebody else said earlier about the 16th Street light and everything backing up in Montera. That's going to be a problem with this too, because if there is a light in California and all the houses that are back in that part of the town are all coming out onto the highway at Bellamar, just blocked from the light, they're going to not be able to get out either because of the light backup from the light.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, we're going to open up for public comment. Maybe not. Yeah, we'll do it. Leonard?
Just checking to see if you're actually going to call my name. Leonard Warren, El Granada. I'm going to start out and say I agree with everything that Dave just said. And during the presentation, I made notes. But the first thing I have to start out saying is the premise is wrong. What I read, I don't know if it was in the agenda item for the meeting or somewhere, that this project is to facilitate more growth. The problem is that we're so overbuilt right now that any of the improvements that are made as part of this project are going to be immediately sucked up by the unmet demand right now, and there will be no capacity for further growth. So what needs to be done is dial way back on the growth first, and then analyze what we need for traffic improvements. We're doing this upside down, and Dennis Coleman said that close to 20 years ago. And Laura remembers that.
I do.
Any new project has to be conditioned on first fixing the incorrectly built signals at Frenchman's Creek and at Coronado, which were done with no storage lanes, and at various times of the week, each one of those is a disaster. Coronado is a total disaster during the morning commute. Fortunately, I don't have to go out in that disaster. Frenchman's Creek is a disaster at certain times on weekdays in the evening commute because they have no storage lanes. I will appeal this all the way to the Coastal Commission and organize lawsuits if necessary to stop any further signals, period, until after those two intersections are fixed. You have to get those fixed first before you even think about putting in another signal. And it really needs to be roundabouts anyway. Signals. Traffic is moving 25% of the time. The rest of the time it's stopped. Going 25 miles an hour around a roundabout is a lot faster than zero at a traffic signal. In one of your slides it says minimize and mitigate impacts of growth. Wrong again. You need to minimize the growth. Traffic signals. Back to traffic signals. Why are all our traffic signals on the coast side such a disaster? Partly because every single one of them is left turn on left arrow only. And so you're sitting there waiting to make a left turn, there's no oncoming traffic, and you're not allowed to make the left turn because some idiot traffic engineer thinks that it's not safe unless you have the left turn dedicated arrow. That's stupid. It's not done everywhere, but it's done all the time here. Get rid of the left turn on left arrow only and allow left turn on green if you do any new signals, which I'm obviously totally against. Roundabout at 35 and 92, that sounds like a serious waste of money. Put the money into doing roundabouts here where they're a lot more necessary and beneficial. And if you're going to claim that a roundabout won't fit, then do a Michigan left turn. I've been yelling from this podium Michigan left turns for a decade. And they're a lot less confusing to people that don't know how to turn the steering wheel because they at least know how to make a left turn. Whereas a roundabout, there's people here that don't understand roundabouts. Can I?
How much more do you think you have?
I'm 2/3 of the way through.
Go ahead, Leonard. Go ahead.
Signal at Rocket Farms. If there's a signal there that allows more than one truck at a time to come through, then commute traffic is going to be following a parade of trucks all the way up 92. So any signal there has to be timed like that so that you can get 3 cars out or 1 truck. If you get 2 trucks in a row, nobody will ever be able to pass them until they get down to 280, because the trucks tailgate each other, so you can't pass them. So that has to be a very, very short cycle signal if it's put in at all. El Granada, the ADA compliant path should be on Obispo, not Alhambra. Bus ridership is too low for the shelters. Maybe the reason for that is because there's no shelters. That one seems really obvious. I think somebody on the council said that. Lot mergers. The planning staff needs to actually enforce the law instead of whispering in the applicant's ear how to avoid the lot mergers, and I know for a fact that they do that. Tell the planning staff they're fired if they tell an applicant how to skirt the lot merger requirements. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you how to skirt it, because there are developers listening. And final comment, you have to reduce the build-out population, and the only viable way to do it without taking these problems is reduce the maximum house size that's allowed on any given piece of land. Right now, every house that's built here since 1988 is the maximum size allowed for the parcel. That needs to be dialed back by at least 30% and maybe cut in half. I don't have any problem with big houses. Put them on more land. You have to revise that, or all of this is just not going to get to any useful place unless you crank down the final build-out population.
Okay, thank you, Leonard. I appreciate Leonard's comments. I know he's very passionate about it. If I could just request that you try to limit your comments to 3 minutes so we can get everybody here. I've got a stack of comments, and but I appreciate what Leonard has to say. Well, sure, Lenny, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. So I'm Lenny Roberts, Committee for Green Foothills, and I didn't read the whole thing yet because I thank you very much for the copy. But I do have some comments just based on some kind of very rapid review. And I want to repeat, I do support everything that Dave said. There are 5 intersections in Midcoast and Half Moon Bay that are proposed for signals. It would be much better for correction of traffic delays on Highway 1 and driver safety and driver satisfaction, because they're not stopped, to install roundabouts. The roundabouts reduce accidents by, especially the T-bone accidents, tremendously. And signals give too much weight to the side streets, so it actually it's stacked against through traffic on Highway 1. And that's especially important, I think, in the Midcoast. And I think it would also be very consistent with the quality of the area to have roundabouts here. Truckee is really going gangbusters on roundabouts, and people who are coming off of the interstate or the state highways manage to do it, even though they've never done it before.
Even I've done it.
Yeah. So the other thing, just in terms of some of the comments that have been made about some of the design features and things like the flashing lights and the curbs, the county has a creative road design guide, and Caltrans has context-sensitive solutions, which was one of the big features of the mobility and safety, the 2 mobility and safety studies. They really, I think that was one of the real, exciting things that those 2 studies promoted, was context-sensitive solutions, so that we have the context of villages and then more rural areas between the villages, and we need to kind of have a sense of each of those communities, and also don't make it like every other highway in the county, because it's different. Coast is different. There is reference on page 4 to 25-year timeframe instead of Buildout. So Rob, I'm kind of interested, I'm happy you said it where you are looking at Buildout, but still in the document it talks about 25 years.
I can answer that question
Okay.
really quickly. Because we did do the constrained forecast to give it a more, we have the full build-out forecast, and that's what all this deficiency actually comes to.
All right.
So, but we also put in the constrained forecast for the next 25 years to kind of give it a sense of what do we think will develop at that time.
Okay.
And what are, if we're tripping any deficiencies until
But we
then.
really need to know what the Buildout would allow, because that's the real number that we need to care, that we do care about. Because ultimately, if you're only looking at a shorter period of time, then you think, oh, not such a big
We are
deal.
looking at full build-out.
Right. Let's see. Let's see, where's, no, I can't even read my writing. Oh, I know, in your presentation tonight, one of the slides mentioned a multimodal trail. Is that the parallel trail?
No, that would be a separate. So we're looking really at along the segment of Highway 1, is that what you're referring to?
The parallel trail runs along Highway 1 on the east side, so that people don't have to cross the highway to get to the coastal trail.
Okay, so yeah, there's the multimodal trail, the parallel trail, one and the same. There's the
Okay.
coastside trail, and then we're looking at a multimodal path, which may be, potentially part of the parallel trail or a separate bike lane along Highway 1.
Well, okay, let me say, the parallel trail is in the county's transportation plan for Measure A, and it is supposed to go all the way from Montera to the south end of Half Moon Bay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we fully support it.
And Half Moon Bay has built quite a lot of it, but it's on the west side. It's really important in the Midcoast to build it on the east side, because that's where most people live, is on the east side of the Midcoast. So in order for people to get to their neighborhood services or schools or whatever without crossing the highway, it's really important to have a bi-directional trail along the east side. And we've said that numerous times in numerous
The
places.
map shows it correctly.
Yeah, okay, but just so that everybody kind of understands, if you're talking about multimodal trail, I think it's the parallel trail. But I just want to clarify that. Okay. The mandatory lot merger, as described here, is very weak, and I think that, initially starting it as a voluntary merger with incentives doesn't really get there. So, the other issue that I'm really concerned about in this plan is that we have, although you talked about these old subdivisions, there are two areas with old subdivisions. One is what we call the Montecito Riparian Corridor. That has most lots are entirely covered with riparian or wetland vegetation. So they're under the coastal plan, they're really not buildable. And then we have a lot of other lots that are on the west side of Seal Cove that are in the ocean, or also in the ocean in Princeton along the shore. These are old subdivision lots, but the county still considers them legal building sites. So, but they're not. Mother Nature really doesn't make it that way. So, because of the coastal erosion over time, the Seal Cove area especially has lost a lot of land that was subdivided. So those lots still exist and people still own them. But we really need to figure out a way to retire those lots or deal with them. And that is another way for the mandatory lot retirement program to acquire those, one for one. So I think those are some. Then there's on Figure 3, page 33, shows the coastal trail north of McNee Ranch, following the old San Pedro Mountain Road. I think, Devil Slide Trail is part of the coastal trail, and I don't know why that shows that old San Pedro Mountain Road as the coastal trail. So, might just be
We can bring that up.
Yeah, I think it's misnamed. I mean, it can be an alternative, but it's not the main coastal trail. So, those are my comments.
Thank you, Lenny. Sabrina Brennan.
Thank you. And I agree with all the comments that were made by the public previously, and also appreciate the comments made by the council. So I'm speaking as a resident of Moss Beach. My name's Sabrina Brennan, and I'm also speaking on behalf of the Coastside Bicycle Coalition, which I am a co-founder of. So I wanted to start by just saying that we are an amazing recreational destination for the entire Bay Area, and we don't support more growth on the coast side. So that's just our stance on that. Regarding bicycle and pedestrian access, it was, Lenny just talked about the multimodal trail, or as we've always called it here, the parallel trail. We definitely support continuing that trail on the east side because we have the coastal trail on the west side, and we do not support paving over the coastal trail in areas that are not currently paved. The people who ride bicycles on the coast side mainly have mountain bikes, and we are set up and equipped to ride on dirt as well as the pavement that we already have in Half Moon Bay. So we don't want to see additional paving added in the Midcoast for the coastal trail. As far as the bike lane goes on Highway 192 and then possibly on Airport, I think that was mentioned as a possibility. We do support bike lanes, definitely, but first and foremost, completing the multimodal trail is the #1 priority that I would hope everybody would stay focused on. Graywell Cove, we're very concerned about the crossing there because there have been fatalities there in the past, and it's extremely dangerous. So we strongly support doing some sort of a overcrossing or undercrossing there. We just can't think of any other solution that's going to work in that location. As far as crosswalks go, we don't really have very many of those at all, if any, on the Midcoast. And there are areas, especially in Princeton, where we need a better plan for crosswalks. There is one crosswalk that was sort of arbitrarily placed in Princeton near the harbor, but we need a plan for where those crosswalks should be located. And I'm not sure if this group has done site walks before, but I think it would be helpful for the public to have a site survey or site walks so that feedback can be provided by the public on site. It's a really good way to think through what works best and kind of start to prioritize things. I'm going to go really fast here. As far as Cypress Avenue goes, we strongly support a roundabout at Cypress, and in general, we support roundabouts versus signalization in any remotely possible situation. If it's possible to do a roundabout, we would strongly prefer roundabouts because they are safer for bicyclists and for pedestrians. And we strongly support installing benches and shelters for the public transit, whether it's the shuttle service or the Samtrans service. If we had benches and shelters, a lot more people would be using public transit. It would also just bring more awareness to public transit from sort of a marketing perspective. So, we're really missing some key opportunities to enhance the transit here with improving the facilities. I'm almost done. Just wanted to pick up on what Lenny said. As far as Seal Cove lot retirement program goes, I'm just going to speak as myself here. I live in Seal Cove, strongly support that. We have a problem in our community of Seal Cove, our neighborhood, where houses actually get red tagged because we are in a geologic hazard zone. We definitely should not be encouraging people to build houses in areas that are not safe. And so there needs to be more work done on the part of the county to better educate lot owners and people that are thinking about buying not to, get invested in something that is going to get red tagged, because, you need to think about your investment. And we've seen that happen, and it's really sad when that occurs. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Sabrina. Harold Herman.
Hi, good evening. So my name is Harold Herman, actually resident in Moss Beach. Just before I start roundabouts, I'm from Europe. They work, actually. They're a lot faster than traffic lights. Just it gets confusing when you go from mainland Europe to the UK, where they drive on the other side. You take a roundabout and it gets a bit tricky, but actually they work. Thank you for your study. I read it actually before the meeting today. I said I'm a resident in Moss Beach. I work in Oakland, so every day get in my car, drive to Oakland. People wonder how I do it. So I leave the house at 6:10 and I'm in Oakland at 7. So that works. I'm pretty early. I'm gonna make a guess tonight. I left the office at 4:30 to be here. Make a guess how long it took me to get through Pacifica. I mean, I have the backlog on the Bay Bridge, but Pacifica, and there's 3 traffic lights. So one's Lindenmark and 2 Wallenmark. Today there was no accident, and actually I was about to get out of the car, but it took me more than 30 minutes. So 3 traffic lights, and that's just regular commute. And probably, it was maybe 5:30, but I was at home at 6:10, so 1 hour, 40 minutes. So I think what I heard today is 14, 15 pedestrian crossings. I think I heard 5 traffic lights. Tagging on what you said is actually spot on. I think what needs to be done is do studies and say at 7 o'clock in the morning, we have that traffic. How long does it take from Montera to get to Half Moon Bay? And now you add all these traffic lights, pedestrian crossings to it, and then you basically do some predictive modeling and say, okay, this is today, now we have 5 years down the road, we have big wave coming in. And I had some exchange with Mr. Horsley. So if there's a traffic light on Cypress, and we have big wave with 5 office buildings, we have a wellness center, we have housing, and we have maybe 500,000, 1,500 daily trips. And I think you said traffic light's going to be triggered by demand. Then this thing going to be a Christmas tree. And what will that do then to all the people who want to pass through that? So we are talking 2 traffic lights in Moss Beach, and that doesn't consider if there's a Mid-Penn or somebody else. We talk 3 traffic lights in Moss Beach. The bad news for me is I still have to go. I have 2 kids in high school and middle school. The start times now getting synchronized. So I think to date there were different start times for the schools. Now they bring it together. So there's an impact through that. And the bad news for me is I'm not a retirement age, so I need to hit it every day. And I need to be in the office. And that's just, I think, a pretty difficult situation. And I'm not an exception. I think people travel down to Cupertino, to Palo Alto, all over the place. And the quality of life going to be really impacted by that. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Mark Verlander. Excuse me.
I just wanted to ask a couple of questions real quick. What the maximum build-out, what LCP plans are those based on?
So you use maximum build-out
Yes.
for so it is under policy, I had the number up here a minute ago.
I don't need a policy. I
Mhm.
just needed to kind of explain it on layman's terms. When were these plans developed?
So it's not a plan,
Yeah.
Mark, it's a requirement of the LCP to say,
To have
what would the
insurance.
traffic situation be at maximum build-out?
So
That's
maximum build-out is
basically what it's
based
requiring.
Based on
currently owned property?
It's based on current zoning and general plan use. So if we built out, the model shows that if you build out the full maximum use of every single parcel on the Midcoast, what would that demand be? That's what we're looking at for build-out.
And are you talking about revisiting those zoning laws?
Not under this program, no. Because the LCP requirement requires full build-out. The analysis that we're doing is under existing conditions as if nothing was going to change.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'd like to go as fast as I can. I'm sorry. My name is Mark Verlander. I went to college in Los Angeles, lived in New York City and San Francisco. We moved to Montera 13 years ago to raise our daughter in a small coastal community. Today, our coast side is increasingly becoming an opportunity for the county to work with developers to build large-scale projects on any remaining large open areas of coastside land, no matter how inappropriate, such as the 176,000 square foot of business park, office space next to wetlands of Mavericks and Point, the Big Wave project, or the current plan to build 148 units of high-density housing on Point, Montera. Our county is offering funding and incentives to developers while giving away the natural treasures of our coastside. I did see the plan today. The Connect the Coastside plan is seeking to further urbanize our communities based on zoning and urban planning dating back to the unbuilt 280 bypass project. This plan seeks to increase urban traffic infrastructure and capacity for future development while ignoring our rural coastal community reality. With this plan, the county is offering to benefit future development agendas while ignoring community requests to preserve our coastside. The Montera Water District has already drilled additional wells and added new water tanks to allow projects like Big Wave and mid-pen housing projects to be built. The Connect the Coastside plan now seeks to add additional highway capacity for these projects. We as a community have to say stop. We do not want to become Daly City. We are not Redwood City. We are the coastside. We're a small, coastal, rural, residential neighborhood amidst the treasured natural coast of California. I'd like to request at this time that San Mateo County remove outdated multi-unit and commercial zoning that was granted decades ago by the 280 bypass and work with the community to create new local community plan. In particular, I'd like to request that the Point Montera property be rezoned and have the high-density housing allowances removed so that it can become a park. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Ann? Karen DeMore?
I'm Karen DeMore. I'm from Moss Beach. I just have a couple clarifying questions because a lot of this stuff just makes my head spin. When you're talking about walkways, ADA compliant walkways on Highway 1, where are those going to go when you get into Moss Beach and Montera? I just don't know where that would be. Same with bike improvements. It all sounds wonderful, but I don't understand where. So those are clarifying questions. And also, diagonal parking on Carlos Street. I don't understand what that would look like as well. What section of Carlos Street? So
Downtown section.
just the downtown section. Okay. Because it already is diagonal.
It's already there.
Okay.
Done.
And then I just, just to reiterate, I really appreciate what Mark just said. Wholeheartedly agree. I think that is such the sentiment of our community. It really is. We keep saying it over and over again. So my comment is, this Connect the Coastside seems to me that it's a way to justify more development, but you can't get past the fact that there's only one Highway 1, there's only 192. There's no other roads in and out. I was late tonight and I left early, but I was down in Mountain View. And I was looking at my ways, and I was trying to figure out all different routes to come here. 101, there were accidents. So I went through Central Expressway, ended up on 280. The point is you have options over there. It's still terrible. And the point is I don't want the coast to become like that. This is one of the last great places for open space, for natural beauty. I mean, we love it here. So this whole notion of creating a much better system of transit so that you can justify more development, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. And I think it's the wrong vision for the future of the coast.
Thanks, Karen. Bill?
Bill Keo, Moore Speech. First, I need a clarification. If you could go back to your slide on lot adjustments, lot consolidation, because you threw a lot of stuff out there, and I didn't have a program to read along with you, so I didn't get all the right info. I'm particularly concerned with when you're talking about forcing adjacent lots under the same ownership. Are they only for ones less than the current zoning?
If
So
they were,
you-
if they were, they'd have to be substandard lots.
Okay, but if they're standard lots bought maybe at the same time and they happen to be
Under common
co-adjoining,
ownership,
you
they would-
cannot force that because that would be a taking. Good. That's what I thought. I was just sort of noodling in my head, do I put it in my daughter's name or my son's name?
No.
But I know there's ways around it. Okay, I can be quick on the what's that? I can be quick on the comments. First of all, Lisa nailed it. Thank you again, Lisa, for being on the council. I really appreciate the work you do, and as all the council members. But when she explained the holistic approach of Moss Beach with a circle on the north side, a circle on the south side, and people either, you know, if they need to take a left, they go 2 blocks this way, go around the circle and go back. Traffic's always flowing. The nicest thing, because I commuted for 20, 30 years over the hill and went through the Central Expressway jumping around kind of crap. As long as you're moving, it's not bad. When you're sitting at a light and there's nobody going this way or that way, that's when I talk like a New Yorker. And it drives me crazy because you're just wasting my time. Traffic circles, I know some people don't like them. I grew up in upstate New York, New England, they have them. Not a bad thing. You're right on when I went to Ireland doing it backwards with the shift on the wrong side. I only took out a couple of rearview mirrors, but it wasn't too bad. But it's not bad, you know? If you have a stoplight, add another 5 to 10 minutes for your commute. Add 2 stoplights, it's 10 minutes. Perfect examples here. Did it for 30 years. We all know that. So no stoplights. They're easier to put in, but you got to be creative. You got to figure out how you put it into the traffic circle. And I believe the diameter of the traffic circle is somehow a ratio to the speed limit going into it. So maybe you slow it down to 20 and you can make it a smaller circle instead of 35, it's a larger circle. But I'm not a traffic engineer like Leonard, so I won't give you any numbers. Second thing, lot retirement. What you guys mentioned, Lenny hit it right now. You got to retire the lots. We're saturated here. You know, we just can't keep building more and more houses. It's too dense already. You know, it's some of the issues that came up during public comment. So you got to figure out a way to do this where if people want to build a house, well, first of all, let me back up a little bit, because I think somebody mentioned that the counties are always pushing, the county's always trying to push in a bigger house on a bigger lot. For the whole existence of the Midcoast Community Council, it was always a rule that we don't let people, when they try to build, to extend beyond the boundary conditions. You know, I forget what it's called now, but, you know, make it too small. Variance, thank you. That has to be enforced, and it just should not happen. And some of these substandard lots, if they haven't been built, they need to be co-joined in that. The third thing, and then I'll get off of here, is public transportation. What's in here is not a transportation plan. The closest you come to getting something right is the school bus issue, which when they took that out, just turned Half Moon Bay and Highway 1 and 92 just into a parking lot. That's a good thing, but the rest of it, you know, if you have to go over the hill for a job, getting Samtrans to go even just to San Mateo, directly over the hill, you're talking an hour and a half commute, you know, with the number of transfers. It doesn't work. So I'll get off at that. I agree with what Lisa, Lenny, Leonard, and all the rest of the people said.
Thanks, Bill. Next up, we have Steve Homeland. Steve.
Hi, Steve Homeland, lived in Montara since 1988, commuted the opposite direction of Harold for the last 28 years to the South Bay. Thanks for taking comments. I first do have to say we were thankful that after living here 1 year, we were able to find a home to live here. But I'll be brief because my comments pretty much echo what's been said. There was an experiment with an extra light on the coast side for the last 2 years. It was the light at Lindemar for the bridge detour. And frankly, we live at 14th, just north of the lighthouse, on Farallon, right against Highway 1. I could have served drinks, non-alcoholic, of course, for 2 hours at a time. The backups were 7 miles long at least on nice, busy holiday weekends. The project's called Connect the Coast. If this goes through, you will disconnect Montera from the rest of the coast side. And having lived here a long time, I think that would be sad. We will become part of Pacifica in a lot of ways, and we don't view ourselves that way. Second observation, not to contradict Dan, but at least from Coronado up to Sam's, pedestrians cross wherever they damn well please. They're the shortest distance between two, points is a straight line. And I don't think putting in half-mile apart crosswalks is going to help. I don't know what you do about that stretch, frankly. Third point, the left turn lights, people increasingly are ignoring them. There's very little enforcement. My record, I think, is counting 6 cars through the light at Coronado after it's turned green for southbound. 6 cars. And I've taught my kids to drive, all 4 of them, and so we say, don't do that. Then the last point is, I'm just surprised that, and this is fine because I know you can't do everything, there's no protected left at southbound 1 at 14th. There have been many, many rear ends over the years. We almost can dial 911 before the skids stop. So I realize 16th and the lighthouse is an issue, but there is a real, my wife won't let me turn in when we're going southbound at 14th. So thanks for taking the feedback and thanks for all your efforts.
Appreciate it, Steve. Yuri Grinberg.
My name is Yuri. I live in Moss Beach since 2000. I commute to Mountain View. I used to commute to San Francisco. I wish the tunnel wasn't there because the commute to San Francisco is more enjoyable, just more beautiful. I don't enjoy my commutes anymore. I have to take the kid to school in Half Moon Bay, and the, what's it called, Frenchman's Creek light is horrible. 2 cars enter the highway, we're all sitting there for half an hour. My daughter chews me up every morning because she wants to be on time. Now, I did tell my neighbors here that I hate roundabouts. But after hearing all the comments, I do hate traffic lights more in this sense. And one more thing, which is a practical notion. I recently went to Australia for 2 weeks, and I drove there. And that's the only place I encountered roundabouts. First time in my life, and no accidents. I was driving on the wrong side of the road, like, really. It worked. It worked to that degree. Where I was going without well, sometimes with the Google navigation or not, in the wrong side of the car, which is worse than the wrong side of the road. When you sit on the right, you position yourself in too much to the left. Anyways, it worked. I came back in one piece. The family's safe. The van of 7 people I drove around was fine. My in-laws are fine. Everybody survived. And I cross Highway 1 in Moss Beach on California often enough with the dog. And people go too fast. And it's dark, and the flashlights I carry don't help much. Basically, maybe roundabouts are the reason, although I did come back from Australia really upset about them, but maybe they're not a bad thing. And the other thing that I wanted to make a different point on development and growth. Yes, the traffic will get worse with 140 units, but I think the more important thing, which people did echo, but I want to emphasize that I moved here from Los Angeles to Sunnyvale in '98 and to here in 2000. And the reason I moved here is because it is rural and not urban, no sidewalks, no curbs, no street lights. I don't feel bad about no street lights. I feel great about it. I enjoy my fog and stars occasionally and whatever else. I don't want it to be apartment buildings and everything else that comes with it. Thank you.
That's my last speaker slip. I'll just make one more call because we're going to have some more comments from council. And because we want to get going, I don't want people, oh yeah, I'm back and forth. So I'll just take a breath. If you have anything else that you want to say, if you're sure you don't want to make your comment.
Go on.
Well said, Ann. As everybody knows, I'm big on public comment, so. Leonard, really?
I forgot to read one of my notes where I wrote, when you only know how to use a hammer, you only buy nails, and that's a reference to traffic signals.
Okay. All right. I'm going to close the public comment and go back to the council for any of their final thoughts and comments. Start with Dave, if you want to start.
Yeah, I think I pretty much expressed it. We've had the discussion about the bus shelters and the benches and everything else. The bus shelters are expensive. There are less expensive ways to build them, except that are not current the Samtrans standard. Unfortunately, they get money to subsidize them, and they have to be ADA compliant. So they sometimes, I think the cost I heard was something approaching $100,000 per shelter, which is why we don't get shelters. So, you know, I do think that we need the shelters and the increased transit to get people out of their cars. Yeah, I don't think I've got much else to add.
Okay. Dan?
I just wanted to add something on the Graywell Cove. You know, I looked at some of the drawings, and, you know, by moving the entrance to where, you know, they picked that entrance, I believe, originally for the best possible line of sight in both directions. By moving it closer to the south curve, you're limiting now, you're reducing the line of sight, making it more dangerous. At the same time, you're now encouraging more left turn activity, which will impact flow and possible accidents. When I saw the chart of the new parking layout, there were actually less parking spaces with the new design. So here you have a scenario where you're inviting more people to come in, to find out that it's full, make a U-turn, and then stop traffic 2 times. You know, so ideally, that's with the grade and everything. Some type of a tunnel-based design based on what they have at Julia Pfeiffer State Park down by Big Sur. It wouldn't be exactly the same, but the basic concept that the tunnel pops out, and you have a little rail. You come to the right, and you're just going to meander down. Obviously, people coming back from the beach, you know, they've just climbed a steep hill. They got a cooler. They got their lawn chairs, you know, blankets, everything. You know, they're tired. They're not able to walk across, you know, quickly. So here you're going to have a situation where you've got a tired, you know, family walking across. They hit a light, and, you know, it's just going to take. It's really going to madly impact the greater flow of traffic. Some type of a well-designed tunnel here would just eliminate all that. Eliminate it. So that's what I think should be in this recommendation here.
Thanks, Dan. Lisa?
I got a few more comments. So I just want to say roundabouts are 70% fewer injury collisions and a 90% reduction in overall fatalities. That's got to play in this decision. This 25-year forecast, I'm just concerned because as we've learned with this Crossings project, which was basically the short-term, high-priority projects to come out of the mobility study, and that's going to take looks like 12 years now, and that's the low-hanging fruit. And so this is a 25-year time frame. It's like, are we really going to get these projects done in this time frame? I bet you don't need to answer that. I'm just concerned. The lot merger program, so the county adopted this in 2006 and has not carried it out. And given this 10-year delay, why can't the program just be mandatory from the get-go? I mean, and especially because your whole analysis here is already assuming these parcels have merged. And the longer we wait, the more people transfer to their, what was it Bill said? Okay. So the access consolidation, I think someone brought this up about Moss Beach. So the focus really, the only real one was Rocket Farms. And we have, and then of course it has come up in various places about closing off some of the access streets in Moss Beach. On the other hand, we have a couple of businesses there where the whole block is wide open to just willy-nilly in and out, you know, and if you're on a bike or you're a pedestrian there, good luck with that. So that needs to be addressed. The crossings, this was, we were taught in the high mobility study, the safety benefits of raised medians, and they put a flashing beacon there, and if you think that makes you invincible, that's not what the statistics bear out. So I just would like to see more emphasis on median refuge islands rather than a string of painted crossings with flashing beacons. They're safer and they're less likely to cause traffic congestion.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Lisa. Claire?
I said it was kind of overwhelming before, and I think listening to people, I have more of a sense as to why it's feeling so overwhelming. It's because there's such cognitive dissonance between what's been presented and what we're talking about reducing motor vehicles, and the time frame that you just brought up, and the underlying major issue of how big is this place going to get, and what can we do about that. It feels, I know you've tried to take all of those things into consideration in making this plan, but there's also the dissonance that goes with what about the other plans that we've been exposed to. It all feels like a mishmash to me. And maybe I'm just tired, but it doesn't feel like it fits.
Thanks, Claire. Laura?
I'm really echoing things that have already been said, but I can say this. The first time I was on the council back in the late 90s, I fought traffic lights to the max then, and I couldn't believe when I saw two of them in Moss Beach. It's very distressing. I fully support what Lisa's saying about the use of roundabouts in any place that we can use them. Second thing is, echoing Dave, we are so far off the track with the rest of the country regarding public transportation. We have this immense, expensive plan we've put together, minimal public transportation. And I have a child, I try to get from here to College of San Mateo, and just to get from El Granada to there is like, as someone said, getting over the hill takes forever. So it's you have to hang on to your car. So I agree totally with what Dave is saying in terms of emphasis needs to be on that. And I think, lot mergers. We were talking about those back in 1999. Lisa, what she said, what are we waiting for? I mean, that needs to happen now. It should have happened before, and we may not be in some of this mess. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, again, like everybody has said some really great things, and I may even be repeating myself, just a couple of quick points to end it, and that is, I think everybody that's come to MCC meetings know that Dan and I are big proponents of some non-grade crossing, above or below. Otherwise, people are not safe walking across, and traffic is interrupted. There is no other thing. And I've spoken to Supervisor Horsley, and I know Caltrans doesn't want to do it, but come on. I mean, I'm sorry, I won't get off it. Above ground or below ground, please, it must be considered, if we're talking about a big plan, it must be considered, and Gray Whale Cove and Surfers Beach are the two places where, if ever you're gonna have one, those are the two places that we need one. So Dan and I are in agreement on that. There's plenty of examples, including one right down at Wilder Ranch in Santa Cruz. So 50 miles away, they've done it. They somehow figured out how to do it. The next thing is school buses, fully funded program, lots of them. There's no excuse for not having this. I don't care how much money it takes. I don't care where the money comes from. We don't have a comprehensive transportation management plan without a fully funded bus system. I grew up in a rural place. Our tiny little elementary school and school district had a fleet of 6 buses, and I was on the bus for an hour and 20 minutes, so that was a lot of area So that bus would have gone down to Pescadero, all the way down there, and come all the way back and bring the kids to Half Moon Bay High. Where are the buses? Why do we not have these buses? I know that was discontinued a few years ago. I can't have no buses and call this a comprehensive plan. School buses.
It was discontinued by the school board because they were pissed that the parcel tax failed. Yep.
Whatever, and I'm not disputing, I'm just saying, at this point, I don't care. I don't care what happened in the past. We need those buses now. They're not that expensive. In the amount of money we're talking for $22 million for just one small, I think it was pedestrian improvements, $22 million, you know what that could buy in school buses and school bus service? So we have to have that, not to mention, as other council members and people have said, better Samtrans. And I call it priming the pump. You put those shelters out there, you tell people that we're going to take care of you, we're not going to make you suffer out there in the wind tunnel and get wet in the fog and stuff so that you can go to your $8 an hour job. We're there for you. Here's a nice shelter, you know, with even like some solar panels on it so there's some light at night and stuff. I mean, come on, again, this is not some super scientific space age technology and things we're thinking about here. These are basic things that we need here that will help. The last thing, and I know that we don't have much control over this, and I'm not trying to denigrate anybody, but this has a lot of information that includes the city of Half Moon Bay, a completely different entity. And they have their own project and their own engineers and their own general plan that they're working on. And these comprehensive plans are just recommendations to Half Moon Bay that they can do or they can do not with, as Lisa pointed out with the Kehoe roundabout. So I just, my concern here is that this whole thing is built on a house of cards, which is Half Moon Bay says no. What? So without any assurances, without any other than a, come on, please do it, Half Moon Bay, I just don't know how much stock I can put in this. We don't know what Half Moon Bay is going to do. And they have everything from Miramar south. So anyways, that said, I really appreciate Rob's work on this, for coming here tonight and answering our questions. And I know that he's going to take these comments and go back and work on them. And
Buy a bus.
Yeah, he's going to come in a school bus to the next meeting. That would be a nice. That would be a nice PR thing.
We'll work on that one.
Yeah, that'd be great. You could bring the whole staff and everything in one, vehicle.
We have any more chairs though?
Hey, you bring the school bus, we'll figure out the chairs. So again, I really, I know that there's a lot of doubts and concerns, but we're trying. County's trying. These are what these meetings are for. This is what the input is for. That's we're trying. So thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Is there anything you'd like to?
One closing note again, April 7th, MC for a workshop, 7 p.m. Half Moon Bay Yacht Club. So I will take your feedback. Thank you very much for all your comments. It was very helpful tonight. And we'll hopefully try to address some of your questions and concerns at that meeting. Or if not, then definitely at the Planning Commission meeting. So we're going to have to kind of chew on some things and do a little bit more research. But we'll definitely get back to you.
Question regarding the workshop. Do you know at this point what kind of format it is? Is it going to be stations or is it going to be?
It probably will be very similar to, I actually don't know the exact format. My guess is it might be similar to what we've done last time where we had the power presentation and we broke it down. I don't know if we're going to do stations. I'll check.
Okay.
So
yeah, my guess is probably be like the PowerPoint we did last time in November.
Okay.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you, and the county on this project has consistently come to the MCC for this preview here, and it may seem repetitious, but it's so valuable for us in this venue. We can really get our questions answered, and the workshop somehow just so much gets lost on it.
It's a very good feedback
that
we get from both the council and from the community, so I'd certainly appreciate that.
Thank you so much, really.
Yeah, we really appreciate your being willing to be the target as the human face of a large amorphous study.
I'm only one person.
We're not blaming
and Rob came alone without the consultants today. He's a confident man. I like it.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you guys.
So before everybody leaves, so this agenda item is finished, but guess what? The next one is about a proposed coastside shuttle, Samtrans shuttle. So if you're interested, and we just heard some people, including myself, railing on, what the public trans, guess what? Next agenda item, Chris Hunter from Supervisor Horsley's office is going to talk to us about a proposed shuttle. Yes, Dolores.
What happens when they finally work out a plan? Who's supposed to adopt it?
The Board of Supervisors, and then it has to go to the Coastal Commission.
Correct. And then it would become part of the LCP, or this is mandated by the LCP?
It would be by reference to the LCP.
It's another hurdle. This has to be certified by the coastal commission.
Correct.
Yeah, first the planning commission.
Sticking around.
Coastal commission has one that requires you to do this.
Thank you so much. Yep. Okay, next up on the agenda, item 4B, the Coastside Shuttle. This is a presentation from Chris Hunter from Supervisor Horsley's staff on a proposed coastside shuttle to run between Half Moon Bay and the Midcoast. I'll let Chris be more specific on that. Chris is also going to look at a grant application to San Mateo County TA Transportation Authority to possibly fund this shuttle. Chris?
Thank you.
1 second. Dan, could you shut that door for me, please? Sorry. Okay, thank you, Chris.
Good evening, Council. I'm Chris Hunter. I'm the Chief of Staff for Supervisor Don Horsley. This is a very specific, small request of the MCC and an explanation of an application that is being made to the Transportation Authority and the City Council Association of Governments. They introduced their request for proposals to fund shuttles throughout the San Mateo County area. It is about a $10 million pot of money. And what we were, there are about 20, or I don't know how many shuttle proposals there are, but as many as 20. This proposal was, it's a long and winding road, but I will tell you very, very briefly. There was an attempt to join the shuttle project that had been going on for 4 years in Pacifica with a continuous loop shuttle project to on the weekends only, and to have it be something that would be beneficial to residents and visitors to the coast side. Pacifica's had a lot of trouble this last year, and they lost all of their matching funds. So at a very late date, I was trying to develop a shuttle that would suit the Midcoast and Half Moon Bay area for recreational activities. And I reached out to multiple areas, including one of the things, the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, and I thought it would be nice to take shuttles of people to the Marine Reserve, and that idea was conflicted with the county park system, which is developing a 12-year gap analysis proposal to restrict activity to the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. And I spoke at great length to the Marlene Finley, the county parks director, and she asked me to not have anything to do with the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. Well, so within a 2-day period, I developed something that sort of mimicked in a way the theme of the old Ocean Shore Railroad of Reaches the Beaches, and just have a very limited shuttle that would go and connect with Highway 1 and Route 17 of Samtrans and Route 294. And let me just be real clear about, this is not a commuter shuttle proposal. This is a very simple proposal, and it's very difficult, and many people today talked about Highway 1 is the only route up and down the coast. And so Samtrans restricts shuttle programs that conflict with their bus program. Okay, so any place where Route 17 stops, which is Highway 1, up and down the coast, including, I was also trying to deal with, trying to develop a program that would help maybe low-income people that were living in Moonridge. Well, Route 17 goes to Moonridge. So there can't be, I mean, if you were to develop your own shuttle and pay for it yourself, you can do anything you want. But if you're trying to get programming money for a shuttle, it can't, you can't even get out the door with the proposal if you can't get a letter of non-concurrence from Samtrans. Well, all of a sudden, I learned many things about the incredible amount of bus stops that Route 17 does stop at. Whether people in the coast side use Route 17 or use the bus is not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about developing a simple beach shuttle program that would enable people who ride on Route 294 and get off the bus at Poplar and Main Street. Within a 20-minute window, they could get onto this little shuttle and go to the beginning of the coastal trail at Poplar, where there's a public parking lot, and then get off and enjoy the beach. And take that little beach shuttle then to the Half Moon Bay State Beach, public parking area, get off, get on, then take the shuttle to Roosevelt Beach, where they could walk to Venice Beach, or it's very close, but to have at the Roosevelt Beach parking lot, and then take the shuttle to the Coastal Trail parking lot at Magellan, and not go any further north because there's Route 17 parking lots at Princeton, route parking all the way up through Montara there, and all the way up to actually Devil's Slide. You can take a Route 17 bus. I wish more people in this area rode the bus that exists, but it doesn't. So the request then is to simply, based on the conceptual, it's not very complicated, that's the concept of having the Midcoast Community Council think about it, take a look about and decide, well, that would be okay, we would like to have something like that. Don Horsley's creating the fund of matching funds. The program is $140,000 for 2 years, and $35,000 of that is being contributed if we were to get the grant. So the grant application is $105,000. You cannot even present something without matching funds, which is why Pacifica's little 4-year experiment with the Devil's Slide trolley that they've been doing is not going to happen next year. And so, in a nutshell, that's what it is. It would be, right now, the preliminary concept is to have it operate 4 cycles on Saturday and Sunday only from 9:30 to 5, stopping 4 separate times at each one of those 4 stops that actually 5 counting the Main Street and Poplar. It's easy to coordinate. There's public parking now that we're not the shuttle that Rob was talking about. We're not a commuter shuttle. We're not trying to be a commuter shuttle. This is a recreational shuttle to try to help people get to the beach. It also addresses one of the major Coastal Commission concerns that I listened to at the last Coastal Commission meeting. I didn't go to it, but I watched it, and where the Coastal Commissioners were saying there's not enough access to the beach by non-car drivers. There's not enough access to public beaches all up and down California to let people from the inner cities, from the urban areas, and in San Mateo County, that's the 101 corridor, get to the beach without a car. So for on the weekend, people could take the bus on 92, the 294 comes down, and get on the shuttle to go to the beach and spend the day at the beach, and get on the shuttle and go back and get back on that. Or people could walk there who live in the area and not have to drive to the beach, or people could find one of the public parking areas or park on public parking on the street and take the shuttle to the shuttle to the beach and have an afternoon on a weekend. And that's basically the premise. It's very simple. The shuttle would be a small 22-person shuttle. It would have handicap ability. There would be bicycles, racks on it if people wanted to take their bicycle to the beach and access the coastal trail and access those particular beaches. As I said, it's very difficult to shape a shuttle project on the coast side because Samtrans has buses here. As much as people complain, they exist. And they restrict any shuttle programs that conflict with those bus routes at all. So that's, and also this is on a side issue, everybody talks about school buses, and boy, they are important. The state of California stopped making it mandatory. Some states in the union have mandatory, and it's your school district that controls that. Don Horsley, Supervisor Horsley, has been working on finding some money for school buses, but it's up to the school district to work that out. But there is a little bit of county money that's going to a school bus project. Actually, the school district controls that.
Okay.
It's a proposal still,
Yeah.
and it hasn't been approved, and it's actually on a deferred action. There is absolutely no effort to increase any kind of activity at Fitzgerald Marine Reserve in this project.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Okay, clarifying questions from council. I see hands ready to go. Claire, what do you got?
As I understand this, this is all of the beaches are within Half Moon Bay, is that right?
Magellan's in the.
Is it?
Magellan is
Barely outside the city limits of Half Moon
because as
Bay.
soon as you get past that, Route 17 hits all of the buses
Yeah.
at the beaches.
So I think probably I'm in favor of it. I just didn't know whether we had anything to say about it because I thought it was all in Half Moon Bay.
Well,
but yes.
It's a county thing asking for support from Half Moon Bay too. So.
Okay, sounds good. One other quick thing. Would you consider letting people take dogs on this?
I think we have to follow the same rules that exist at the beaches.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that I don't know if the bus company allows that.
Look into it if you would, because people go to Poplar with their dogs.
Yeah.
Okay. Lisa?
So Chris, where are we at now? Would you like a letter from us? Is there time? Like a grant application? Is it time for us to support?
This project is what's considered a deferred action because we changed it because the initial proposal did include Fitzgerald, but we just, because Marlene Finley personally asked me, and we did do some outreach, we had a big story in the Half Moon Bay Review, we had social media, we're going to continue to do some outreach, but the Chamber of Commerce of Half Moon Bay and the City of Half Moon Bay have already expressed their support.
On that support, Chris, was that for the original one that went to Fitzgerald? Because I did see those two letters, but that was supporting the shuttle to Fitzgerald.
They told me that they'll support this. I'm going to get that I'm also getting the letter of non-concurrence, which, we should be able to do.
Letter of non-concurrence.
From Sam, I explained that in the beginning. I have to get a letter of non-concurrence from Samtrans. I did manage to do that with the previous project because buses don't go to Fitzgerald either, so it's very unlikely that they would have a problem with this too, since I received that previously.
Okay.
And it would be, there's not like next week. It's like now there's a little more breathing room in the next couple months. It's been deferred action, so I have to reapply, but I'm allowed to do that.
Okay, great. Good. Lisa, did you have any more questions? Dan?
And it is free.
Oh.
That's
the beaches that would access from Magellan going south. Could you repeat those one more time? So which stops? I'm trying to get an idea of the actual.
Yeah,
we're talking about a loop, right? It would just.
It's a back and forth. Okay, like from Poplar and Maine, the bus area, the bus stop area, straight out Poplar to the coastal trail, the Poplar Beach,
To Poplar Beach.
And then from Poplar Beach up to Half Moon Bay State Beach.
Does that go back?
And then,
Up
no,
Highway-
and then go, oh, at that
Back
point it
to
goes
Highway
out.
1?
To Half, yeah. to-
After Kelly.
Up to
north of
Kelly.
goes to-
There's no, not very many side streets at that point, but yeah, Highway 1.
I wouldn't go through Alsace Lane.
It's in the, on the supporting.
Okay.
documents, the whole map.
All of this stuff is, that's what we have at this point. And then up to Half Moon Bay, up to Roosevelt, and up to Magellan, and then each time it has to go out to Highway 1, out to Highway 1, out to Highway 1, because.
Because that's the only way to get there.
Right. But hopefully it would be one bus instead of maybe 22 cars going to the beach. I mean, that's the premise. Sure. That it would take some cars off of this absolutely insane traffic that everybody has talked about all night tonight.
But just to be clear, if someone were gonna start at Poplar in Maine and want to get to Magellan, they would have to go through all this zigzag. Okay. And the traffic that it would add to on the.
Well, yeah, there's not enough, well, it's just one bus, and it would have to go to those places instead of just, going back and forth and back and forth, back and forth.
Right, and not an express, a shuttle.
And it's not a helicopter.
Helicopter, yes.
Helicopters taking kids to school, absolutely.
How about just a huge drone?
I do have a question.
Oh, one sec, we got Dave down there.
Yeah, so Lisa suggested stopping out at the parking lot that serves the Mavericks Beach, the North Jetty. And there is no Route 17 service there. It turns and goes up Airport Boulevard. So that's a good half-mile road distance. Granted, it's not the easiest parking lot to turn around in, but it's really hard to see stopping in Magellan. There's no beach there. There's the coastal trail, but if you stop at Roosevelt, you're less than a half-mile walk from the same place on the coastal trail that they're going to the coastal trail to walk. So I love the idea of shuttles, but they've got to serve places people want to go. And this one does not seem to me to do that.
Philip Point is popular, but the bus would probably have to stop at West Point like at Stanford, because I don't think it could get around out there.
What? I'm sorry, Dave, are you?
So, yeah, I mean, I personally would have a lot of trouble supporting this as it stands. I just don't see it as being, I see it as likely to be almost all over, which people, after the Half Moon Bay Review article, were telling me they were really worried about. And now, this plan, I see almost no chance that anybody's going to take the bus to Half Moon Bay, transfer to this, and then use it. I mean, if you're going to do that, you may as well just go to Francis Beach instead. That's it. Back and forth between the M294 and Francis Beach. People that want to get to the beach on public transit, that makes a lot more sense than the routes that this has.
Okay. Oh, one sec, we got more next.
My question is, you mentioned getting from 101, or I mean, that was your example anyhow. Can you actually take the 294 to this shuttle?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's to Poplar in Maine.
Yeah, it's the end of the line for 294.
Oh, that's right, okay, it's Poplar in Maine. But how often does that 294
It's
go
every
on
hour
the
on the
weekends?
weekends now. Samtrans did with some
it's every hour
pressure
now?
increase the service
Yeah, and
frequency.
people could, within a window, be able to take the bus to the beach from the end point of 294.
Mhm, mhm.
But
Is there, and what's the public I mean, I know you've talked about public outreach already, like in the review, but how would you get, it seems to me you'd need to get the word out over the hill.
well, there's money in the proposal to do marketing, to advertise on the Samtrans buses, to promote it internally.
Oh, there is.
To have a big sign on the little side of the bus, the free beach shuttle, like some of the other shuttles in the county do, where people know. I mean, it would be an exercise and an experiment to figure out that, but we would use all of the typical social media and you know, outlets that are there. That would be definitely an effort. One of the things that happened, and just for background, there was a lot of concern in the Pacifica shuttle that there wasn't enough marketing because that little bus ended up going around empty most of the time. And the idea that we would spend some extra money in the program to market it on the radio, to market it, to develop an opportunity for people to take it if they wanted to. And I really respect Dave's point. It's really hard to develop a shuttle for this area, given Highway 1.
And the same
and the restrictions.
It's hard.
That answers my questions. Thank you.
Dan?
Yeah, it's just thinking, you know, it travels to New York City, how their subway system works so great. They've got the local and they've got the express. So the people that want to get way on the other side of the island, they take the express and they don't have to stop at each, and they get there like that. A lot of the, I think one of the reasons why Samtrans here on the coast is not heavily used is because to get from one point to another, you gotta meander through all, it takes forever. And now you're talking about a transfer with a bunch more meandering. So I'm not sure what the, anyway, so
well, it's not a commuter bus. It's to take people to the beach, and if they want to go to the beach, they can go to any of these beaches. But I understand what you're saying, but.
So, but I was just kind of maybe suggesting the thought of something that's more of like a direct.
To where?
Well, yeah. I would say, you know, some key park and ride spots that are, you know, either north on Highway 1 in Pacifica or whatever, or east on, you know, by 280 and 92, something where, you know, I'm not sure maybe the expected ridership, who would get on this bus at what point, go to Poplar, Maine, and then transfer to another bus, a shuttle.
All of the people that are jamming the road getting to the beach. I mean, the beaches are the destination. And I just want to emphasize, this particular project isn't a commuter. It isn't, I can't take people to anywhere on Highway 1 where there's a Route 17 bus stop.
I got you, yeah, that's a
and so I don't want to talk about that because
right.
It's not possible.
And even if it's not faster than driving, you're not the one stuck in traffic.
Yes.
So there will definitely be people who use it if it gets publicized.
Well, I'm thinking about Route 1 where traffic is always stopped on the weekend, probably little signs suggesting that use a beach shuttle.
Yeah, your beach does that.
And it is an
Your woods,
experiment.
right?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it might draw coastsiders who are locked at home on the weekend and think, oh, we could just take the beach shuttle and go
Oh,
down to
that's a
that
good
beach.
point.
Anybody in downtown Half Moon Bay or
And walk
along the
to
coast
Safeway.
could
Yeah.
get it. And
Safeway even.
Well, you got a point.
free.
Even, yeah.
We
some
can experiment with it.
Okay, so I have a couple questions and points for you, Chris. I appreciate the reworking of this. I know it must have been kind of a disappointment that we seemingly had the other one almost lined up. So some questions. So Poplar in Maine, if people don't take a bus there, if they're not taking a bus to Poplar in Maine to pick up the shuttle, where are they coming from? Where are they parking their car? It seems a abstract starting point. I know that there's the Nantucket Inn is close to that, and I think there's one other, the Half Moon Bay Inn is a few blocks down from there, but you know, there's not a lot of hotels and motels around there, other than if people were not taking this 294 from over the hill, which I just don't see happening. I don't know who's getting on at Maine and Poplar and where they're going to park their cars. So that's.
Can I
Oh, yeah.
interject something? That all the people with the senior housing down there are right at that position. They may be getting on this.
Well, that's a good point.
And that would be marketed to them, and it would also be, because it's south, a little bit further south from downtown Half Moon Bay, there is a lot more just public parking there. And if people go, oh, I want to, instead of parking my car at the beach, I'm going to park my car somewhere in Half Moon Bay and then walk down to the shuttle and go to the beach. You know, there's a couple of city parking lots within several blocks of there that Half Moon Bay says we could have access to. There are, I mean, it's a central focal point for the project to have it be accessible from Route 294 and Route 17. So
Understood.
if people don't use the bus and park somewhere else in Half Moon Bay and jump on the free bus to the beach, that's still a benefit. But
That is.
I can't build a parking lot for people.
I know, but that's why I pointed that out, of like, that seems to be a, you know.
And there are parking lots at each one of the beaches that I'm trying to have people not go to, but
Although
we're not gonna have a lot of restrictions in that. We're gonna try to encourage people to figure out if they wanna get to the beaches and use the coastal trail, and go to Magellan, get off at Magellan and use the coastal trail to walk up to Princeton, because there's a bus stop at Princeton, so I can't have them, you know, stop at Princeton.
And we need an app. There's got to be an app.
Yeah, you guys are working on that?
It should
Okay,
get
so.
added- It should get added by coastline.
In the, just to move it along, so I'm just raising
No, I
my
appreciate it.
question. So in the second leg, as Dan said, I mean, Railroad Avenue through Al Saints Lorraine, as we've heard people from Moss Beach and other places say about their community, I'm not sure how the residents are going to feel about having a shuttle coming through their neighborhood with their kids and stuff. So I know,
Okay,
there's nowhere else we can
and
go.
we can put it back out on the Highway 1, if that's your recommendation. That's
But they'll like that better than the beachgoers parking in front of their house.
It's a no-win.
That was.
So then the Roosevelt Beach, I mean, unfortunately, that's a left turn across oncoming traffic on Highway 1, so we're going to have cars backing, and we're waiting for that left turn, there's no pocket, I mean, so that's again,
That
like,
would be 20 cars during the day instead of one van.
assuming each individual person on the van would drive their own car, which,
Well,
you know,
You
we can
could-
quibble over the
You could
assumptions.
do the routes, you go up to Magellan, turn left at Magellan, come back and hit Roosevelt on the south, too.
Yes, that's a good point. And then at Magellan,
That
when we-
makes more sense, yeah.
when we get to Magellan,
And there's room for that kind of, you know, I mean, that's what
Modification.
absolute
Right.
modification, or if all of a sudden we can do it quicker so that it's not I mean, if it doesn't take as long as anticipated, it could be a much quicker route.
Okay, so then I'm sorry, again, just at Magellan, there's a parking lot there, I think for like 4 cars. It's on weekend days, there's the coastal trail, there's an outlet there, there's people going to the Miramar and the restaurant. That's really there's cars parked all along the side and everything, there's bikes coming, kids. This bus is gonna have to turn around there, this shuttle's gonna have to turn around there, and there's only like 3 or 4 parking spots. So if people are picking it up at this terminus, again, where are those people coming from? Where are those people gonna park to come southbound, if that's what we have a southbound route, so, you know, I guess the assumption is people would ride it from Half Moon Bay up and then come back to their car, their apartment or whatever down in Half Moon Bay. But I see a logistical issue with the turnaround of just the turnaround of the shuttle in that constrained, busy street right there. I mean, what are your options? Go all the way to Murata and up Medio, but then the people on there, we're not gonna be happy with the shuttle going through there. So, I mean, I'm just pointing out what I see as some technical bumps that are real life bumps, but I'm not trying to.
No, you're right.
And then the last thing I would say is,
There's more.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry, but free's great. But again, if I'm an $8 an hour worker and I have to pay to ride to Samtrans, it kind of annoys me that some, tourists from out of town are getting a free shuttle. And I got to pay my Samtrans money out of my $8 an hour to go, do whatever it is that I'm doing, that I have to ride a bus to go there. So if we're going to have free shuttles, can we reduce the cost for other regular commuter riders? And the last thing. Let's get super damn creative here. So Samtrans is saying we can't drive, we can't use any of their, okay. Fully fund those school buses and use them on the weekends for the shuttles. They're not driving kids on the weekends. So let's pay some money for the school buses and then use them. I know, that's crazy. We couldn't have school buses. Here's the box. We got to go outside the box. And we need to multitask, use combined resources. I mean, buy Samtrans buses and use them for the school buses, and then they'll look like Samtrans on the weekends, and we can go anywhere we want, unencumbered.
Fair Oaks does that. I think they use some sort of corporate buses that aren't used on the weekend.
We're ready.
Oh, but there's public here?
And there's 16 parking spaces at Magellan.
16?
16. On Google Earth, 16 cars are parked there.
Oh, well.
In diagonal parking.
16 cars are parked. We got one more comment from council.
Okay, so just to clarify, I'm hearing you say that the route could be starting at Poplar and Main, go all the way up, direct to Magellan, pull in, turn around, come on Medio, and then it would be a right turn off the highway and then another right turn with no left turn. This is a possible route to minimize any impact on the traffic. That is possible.
Sure.
And second question, so if someone took that free shuttle, they would access the state beach for free as well. Is that correct?
That's the hope,
Yes.
Yeah, they only charge for parking. Okay, no further questions, thank you.
Yeah, that's a selling point. Yeah, definitely. Okay, public comment. Leonard.
Oh, the 3-minute limit doesn't apply to Chris. Originally, I was gonna, before I heard that you dropped FMR from the list of stops, I was gonna say this sounds like a solution in search of a problem. Now, for this to work for beachgoers, I think that the shuttles have to have generous provision for all the stuff that people bring to the beach. Sometimes beach chairs, typically coolers, and most of the little buses probably are not going to have space for that, so you might have to rethink the internal layout of the bus. And, somebody, I don't know, maybe it was you who made the comment about bicycles. I think there's probably a lot of demand for that. But one of the things I'm really thinking of is to get the cars off at 92. And so if the shuttle could go all the way to that ad hoc park and ride at lower 35, right off of 92. I'm pretty sure that Samtrans doesn't stop there. Maybe they do, but I don't think so. Another possibility might be to have discussions with Samtrans and just fund them adding the service. You'd have to have a real sharp lawyer write the contract so that they can't siphon the money away that they're already spending here and just replace it with the money you're providing. But if you could provide money for additional service instead of creating the new shuttle, then you dodge the issue of the overlapping stop locations. I was going to suggest something on the route, but Dan already covered it. Basically, design the route so it's only one left turn. And I would actually propose turning in at Medio and going north on Murata Road, because at some point I'm going to start pushing my old plan from a decade ago to close the southbound lane of Murata Road and make it northbound only, and the southbound lane would be a pedestrian bicycle promenade. And maybe it'll fall into the ocean slower without the vehicle traffic on that side of the road. And the last comment I wrote down here is, figure out how to provide Wi-Fi, that'll get people on the bus.
Good point.
Ask Google, I think they do it on their buses.
Sabrina? Thank you, Leonard.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so the reason I came to the meeting tonight was for this item, and I'm glad it's finally my turn. I'm here as a representative of the Coastside Bicycle Coalition, and we strongly support the free beach shuttle experiment. I think it's worthwhile, and to get to Chris's point about the Coastal Commission, the Coastal Commission has been very vocal in recent years about the need to provide access for low-income families that don't necessarily live near the beach to access the coast. And it's really important, it's a really important component of the coastal program in California to not just have our beaches available to middle-income or high-income families, but to encourage low-income families to access all of this great recreation. So I see this as a component of that. It's not obviously a solution. There's a lot more work that would need to happen over the years to figure out how to shuttle people effectively on Highway 92. Because there, obviously we don't have the parking garage on 92 where people could park, you know, near the College of San Mateo, get in the shuttle, and then ride over to Half Moon Bay and then catch this free beach shuttle. In a perfect world, that's the system we would have. We're not there yet. If there's a way to find funding to build that parking garage near the College of San Mateo, we would certainly want to support that too, and improve the shuttle so that it's fully functional. As far as the actual marketing goes, it sounds like some good ideas have been talked about. Park and ride, you know, I like the idea of people being able to hop on, even if they're locals and they want to just, you know, they're on their bike and they want to get on the shuttle and hop to another beach for some reason, they should be able to do that. If the shuttle has a nice colorful bus wrap, I think it's going to stand out and people are going to know what it is when they see it on Highway 1. I mean, we're all going to see it, so it's going to market itself as long as it's colorful. And obviously the chamber is going to be interested in helping with the marketing, which is great. That's a great thing for them to help out with. So we, of course, support that as well. And what was the last thing here? Oh, thank you so much for taking out the sensitive Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. We definitely have issues with wear and tear on the reef, so appreciate that being taken out of the route. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sabrina.
If you need a letter from the Coastside Bicycle Coalition, just send me an email.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bill?
I'm still Bill Keogh from West Beach. First, an aside to the council, sorry I hate to do this, but in the bylaws, it says the public is treated on an equal footing with the members of the council. So when you have discussions among yourselves for like a half an hour and then mush us through with 2 or 3 minutes, that's not really an equal discussion. I admit that, let me finish, it's my 3 minutes. I appreciate that you have to get clarifying questions, but then you come back at the end and you also get to make comments. Please stick to clarifying questions, please make them short and sweet. If we get 2 minutes, you get 2 minutes. If we get 3, you get 3. That's all I'm asking.
Well, I disagree with your interpretation
This is
of...
my comment,
I
and you don't get
disagree
a
with your
chance until I'm
interpretation,
done,
Bill,
Chris.
and you're getting your 3 minutes.
Chris, I have this, and I got to finish, and I want to actually address this. And you read that, and you call me up, and we'll have a long discussion on that, because I know those. Anyway, Chris Hunter, thank you for coming over here. I think it's a great idea that you want to try this experiment. It could give us valuable input as to other shuttles. I see you have a lot of engineers here you could probably tap for free that all want to tell you how to do it. I'm not going to tell you how to do it. But I think for an experiment to see how that's going to work, I think it would be good to see who's going to use it. I'm a little bit afraid that it's gonna end up like the one in the Pacifica with nobody riding it. And the things that popped out in my mind, without the routes and all the rest of it, is it's not going anywhere near a commercial facility where you could sit down, buy a drink, or get something to eat, or maybe even shop for seashell nightlights or whatever it might be, you know.
Yeah, well, because
you know,
Route 17 stops at all of those.
Yeah, and I heard you, but and I understand, you know, Sam Transit, it's an even bigger animal to deal with in the Midcoast Community Council, so I appreciate that. But I think that would probably cause people to probably not use it and take their cars so they can, you know, I'm gonna be here.
Well, that's what I was hoping, I mean, I don't know if I can say,
Yeah,
that they would be able to walk on the coastal trail up to Princeton and all of that commercial area. It's not
And
that
you,
far.
and you did mention it, but I've forgotten all the other discussions going on here. So what's the schedule? Do you think it's gonna like do a route every hour during that 9 to 5 or whatever it's doing? Okay.
Like four cycles. But it may be that that's too much time and it could do 5 cycles. I mean,
So that's in play, that's in play.
Yeah.
So it seems like the traffic will bear. And then, okay, I mean, I'd love to hear a report back. Are you gonna keep statistics and see?
Oh,
like,
yeah, absolutely.
how many
We
people
have
are-
to. That's part of the project. And if it were to be, just for specifics, if it were to be approved, then it would be it might be a 3 to 5 month to get an RFP, to get the proper stuff, and then to move it. And then it's a 2-year funding cycle. And at the end of 2 years, then we'd have to either see if we want to keep doing it or not.
Okay. So, I mean, it's worth a try. And then these other ideas that popped up, other experiments like on, 92 or whatever. Instead of going with shuttle buses for 92, I want to bring back the idea of a tram like they have to Roosevelt Island, going over the hill, You could charge extra, it's
Put that on
scenic.
my credit card.
It's been mentioned before. One other really quick comment. One way to get more lower income people on the Samtrans over to here might be to hand out prepaid Clipper cards
Oh, yeah.
that are good for, the round trip. And considering the cost of the shuttle, those are pretty cheap. You can make it part of your marketing program.
Good. Okay, thank you, Dave. Okay, so I think what the council needs to think about, are we going to write a letter of support? So that's what we need to think about. Do I hear any motions from anybody? Oh, Lisa, you have your hand up. What have you got?
I move the MCC send a letter in support of the grant application for the coastside weekend shuttle from Half Bay to Magellan for the coastal trip.
I'll second.
Okay, does anybody want to say anything?
It's all been said.
I just, I started out kind of against it, I'm leaning for it now. It would have been nice to have, maybe I missed it on, just kind of like a well-planned route that, that would minimize the,
It's in your memo.
Yeah, I don't know if the route was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
It came very late today, so you probably didn't see it.
My feeling is that I'm somewhat ambivalent on it. I'm not sure that it really is going to help the things we're trying to help. However, at the end of the day, like, what's it really going to hurt to try it? I mean, why not?
It's 10-10.
I understand.
Call the question.
Call the question.
Yeah.
Well, it's been seconded.
It's been seconded, and we are now discussing.
We're finished.
When you call the question, gotta call the vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 6-0. Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much for your time today.
I'll send you an email and get some more
Thank you for your
details.
time.
Yeah, really.
And I'll keep you all informed.
When it's in operation, will they be able to like fill with the path?
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm going to be working on it. It happens.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Ellie, thank you, too. Any council activity anybody cares to discuss, Lisa?
The Air Force lights up on Pillar Point. I contacted Mark Delaplane at the Coastal Commission. He's the federal consistency person, and they have direct jurisdiction over the Air Force there, and he said that actually, he had already received complaints about those lights, and he was already in contact with them, and they're trying to work on a solution that would satisfy their security needs as well as the light pollution. He mentioned that it was actually Coastal Commission staff who had noticed the lights and not liked them, and I was wondering if that was when they came in here for their meeting and had the reception at the yacht club. But anyhow.
Are you talking about the horizontal row of white lights?
Yeah, I always thought those were street lights, but if you look at Google, they're all along the fence line. There's over 30 of them.
Right.
And I think it's security.
There's a light security perimeter, absolutely.
So, anyway, I thought that was good news. All it took was a phone call.
Yeah, well, they used to be, it used to be kind of a soft yellow, and when we went to the bright white, it just increased the
Yeah, so he asked me for
brightness.
information on that. I'm pretty sure that was in early 2014. Anyway, whatever. I just want to report that I had that conversation. I'm done now.
Anybody else?
Yeah, three things. I went to the last Tappan Bay Community Council meeting specifically to speak on the topic of coastal armoring, the emergency coastal armoring. Most of the council was interested in what I had to say. They directed city staff to come back with another proposal that would include, at a minimum, gathering information for future planning for retreat and possibly solutions other than coastal armoring. So that'll be back on the agenda at the April meeting. Went to the RCD meeting
Well,
last.
done with that. Let me just say, I really appreciate that. As I understand it, you were the only one there. You got it pulled from consent, and that's the result you got. Thank you very much.
Well, they had 15 items on consent, and they pulled 9 of them.
Well, anyway, I saw the.
But anyway, yes, they did, and I didn't even realize it was on the consent calendar, so it was just like focused on the item. But yeah, Rick Walchuk asked, and multiple people asked to pull items from the consent agenda. Went to the RCD meeting last night. They had a presentation on first flush, the measurements, correlations over the years. They've been sort of lurching along year to year on funding. They're trying to come up with a multi-year funding strategy.
That presentation will be repeated at SAM. I don't know if it's this meeting or next meeting, so people who want to watch it can catch whichever meeting that is on video.
And it will also be presented at the Harbor Commission meeting sometime in the next month or so. So that's another opportunity to see it. And I have one other item.
Library? Design?
What's that?
Design?
No, that wasn't it.
Library?
No, well, so library did come up. They officially accepted the $6 million interest-free loan after a lot of discussion.
Really?
There was actually a lot of discussion.
Give me $6 million, I'll just take it.
Fire tower? That didn't come up.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I thought of one more thing. Somebody left, who cares? So there's all these cypress trees planted along Beachway, over there by the Seal Coast staircase, right across the view, 5 feet on center. Anyway, so this was reported in November, and so Camille has written her letter to the applicant and has to take out most of the trees within 30 days. So.
What about the cypress lining Highway 1 near Capistrano, which were intended specifically to block the
There was
view?
also cypress trees planted by a nearby owner at across from 14th Street, and been dealing directly with Caltrans on that, and made some progress. And now there's a petition online. Caltrans wants more people to weigh in. I said that we could have, I may bring a letter for our next meeting to support that, but we'll see how that goes.
Oh, and at least one of us should report that a number of the council members were at the Bed open house. So, yeah, I don't think there's much to say. Most of us were there. A lot of the public was. It was not as one-sided as the resistance a few people made out, especially after they all left and people could actually hear each other.
Yeah, I mean, they counted everybody there as being against the projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not happy about the way that was reported.
Anybody else?
On that, I'll just note that stopped at the traffic station at the Midpen, and the guy there from Midpen acknowledged that all these cars going out to Highway 1, it's just, doesn't make sense. So he went as far as saying it's likely that they're going to have to widen Carlos Street to bring all that traffic, if it were, through Carlos Street. I don't know how you can do that. It's not much. It seems like a major project. You got the grade to widen that. I don't know. But anyway, through adding it all so that people would enter, at California or Vermont or whatever in that area. So.
We'll wonder more if we have a project.
Right.
That's what he said to me.
Okay, I went to the GGNRA dog policy meeting last night. It's about 75 to 100 people. Everybody except one person was, there's nobody that's anti-dog, but everybody except for one person was arguing, complaining, asking why not more dog area. And they were doing some silent protests. They went around and passed out paper plates that said like rigged or failure or corrupt that they would hold up whenever the superintendent would speak, which was nice that they weren't verbalizing, but still seemed a little rude. But it was generally a ruly crowd. It wasn't out of hand. And I will say that a couple of things that came out is that NPS has not done any kind of user study for Corral de Tierra part of GGNRA. And so that was specifically asked by people that were there last night. You have decided on these trails and these amount of things in Corral de Tierra. Based on what? And the answer was based on a pool of data from the other GGNRA locations. And people that were there last night, justifiably so, were not satisfied with that answer because they had anecdotal evidence that from people living right next to the entrances to Corral de Tierra that most of the people there are going there with dogs. So that's anecdotal, but NPS doesn't have any data to refute that. And so people were asking, how can you make decisions without a user study? You've done user study for all the other areas, not here, yet you're making decisions. The other important point, I think, is that the dog people raised, and I think justly so, is that there is, in all the GGNRA, there is not a single off-leash area in San Mateo County. And there are 5 in the city of San Francisco in GGNRA. There's not a single one in San Mateo County, and people are frustrated by the juxtaposition of that, of we moved to this area, we live in this area with all this open space and all this wilderness or open area, and yet we're the ones that don't have any place to take our dogs off leash. So that does seem like a bit of a disconnect, and I don't know where it's going to go from here. The Park Service was saying the right things. We're listening, we're taking this into effect, but people there were under the impression that the cake is baked, the die is cast, the decisions are made, and so they're very frustrated.
I know it's late. I went to a meeting with the head of the GGNRA in the fall, and apparently just what they've authorized in terms of having dogs at all in this park is way out of line with the rest of the country's policies are. And I think people have a right to protest whatever they want to protest, but give the parks credit for coming up with as much as they have.
The superintendent says that 410 NPS installations in the United States, this is the only one that has allowances for off-leash dogs. Great. However, if you live in San Mateo County, if you live on the coast side and you want to walk your dog off leash in GGNRA, you need to get in your car and drive to the closest one is Fort Funston. So that's a bit of a misleading statement in that, yes, it's the only installation that allows off-leash dogs, but not in this part of it, in this county, the properties that are in this county. So great for all the other parts, but in this part where people just see Montera Mountain and McNee Ranch State Park and all this open area, and there's not a single place to take their dog off.
We can't discuss this because we don't have an agenda item.
It's not being discussed. We're not advocating. I'm pointing out what was the important issues that were raised in the meeting last night.
makes me want to talk.
So let's stifle that. Anybody else? No more council activity? Great. And future agendas. At our next meeting, we're going to have one of the
The infamous.
It's happening. Sister Cities next time. And also presentation from the Devil Ride slide organizers, also an important one. As an agenda item, I would like the MCC to review what the thinking is in our assignments for people to other committees, specifically with regard to the Portola Trail Committee and what the role of the MCC is on that committee and who our representative should be on that committee. That's going to be an agenda item at the next meeting. And if nobody else has anything, we're adjourned.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Thank you, Chris.
Appreciate it.
Given what we had on the agenda and the public comment, that was reasonably short.